I need this tonight. This I already have. All right.
So this is for first bank signature stuff. So just write on
Where it says my name. Right here. Right here?
T go. Just go below. Yeah, okay. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, so on the line.
Yes.
Right, yeah. Sarah Stidland. I didn't get the S. Really strong. Okay.
And that one is there.
In the box. It's like the
Camera. What's the camera, guys?
I think I don't know.
One that's for Lake Elmo Bank. This is Tina and Mike's.
Everybody's healthy?
Yeah.
Even a little bit?
She came home today.
Oh my goodness.
She's doing well.
What's her name?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. All right, I'll get the rest of this.
Yeah.
Because I can.
Yep. If not, give it to me too. Kathy's letters I do need tonight.
Oh, you do?
I think,
Okay.
yep, those we have. Actually, they are going to be hand delivered.
Oh, okay.
I need to get those back to
Okay.
Oh, I forgot my tea, darn nabbit. My tea.
I just reminded you. I can't give it to you tonight. Look at that.
Dang it.
Oh, there it is.
My car should
gosh.
run out, but that's all right.
Pass with a forgotten half. And what is that, like
Front doors.
8 or something?
28 years
That's
old.
just that little bit of lazy.
Gracious.
I can sit for a minute.
Just don't let me get away.
It's baked stuff, so if I don't catch it today, we'll get it later.
How you doing, Mike?
Good, I think.
You think?
It would seem like there's a bigger crowd outside because far away, but I came the back way.
Pulled up behind Don.
Hi, Mark. I got a copy of, this is the guy that spoke the closing remarks at the MSBA conference now in November.
Yeah,
This is an amazing book.
good.
This is like a mind-blowing book. This is, I feel like I'm,
Good. How are you?
I was gonna do something on.
I gave it. I put it over to Jen. Yeah.
And then she sent me a PowerPoint put together, and then she quoted it. It came from. So I went to where she put it. I'll probably revisit it. It's like the. Now, some of them they will hold in.
Right, so the restorative aspect, like the response, just gets changed when necessary.
where did you get that? I tried to find.
I did, I had to do it on my own.
82 is 37.
Literally.
All right, everyone, are you ready?
I am. Scrambling for ready.
There we go. Welcome to the regular board meeting of Stillwater School District. Can we start with the call to order?
Yes.
Or, I'm sorry, the roll call.
Chair Stivland,
Here.
Vice Chair Pearson,
Here.
Treasurer Riley,
Here.
Clerk Potacek,
Here.
Director Burns,
Here.
Director Pelletier,
Here.
Director Weisberg. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Let's say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I think Director Riley, do you have the mission statement?
The mission of Stillwater Area Public Schools, in partnership with students, family, and community, is to develop curious individuals who are active and engaged leaders in an ever-changing world by challenging all students as they travel along their personalized learning pathways.
Thank you. And do we have the board goals?
Yes.
Thank you.
In partnership with community, parents, and students, the School Board of Stillwater Area Public Schools ensures excellence in education by increasing student achievement for all students, securing long-term financial stability of the district, and increasing community trust and engagement.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Raise your right hand and say aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it is unanimous. Thank you. And now we are on to our superintendent report.
All right, thank you very much. First of all, I'm pleased to share the partnership plan has agreed to help support our efforts to continue to develop the Pathways and Possibilities program for our secondary students. We're thankful for the interest and willingness to invest in the exploratory next steps as we determine the needs and desires for our students, families, and community. Bob Manning will be focusing on the community partnership aspects, and Rachel Stile will focus on the curriculum alignment needs for the time being leading into summer. Our students participated in the Suburban East Conference Music Festival at Woodbury Senior High on Monday. As always, our students and staff were extremely impressive and represented our music programs and schools so well. Thank you to the parents, staff, and students for making this a memorable experience for everyone. It was really exceptional. It always is. I've also received some questions regarding the bus terminal and what seems to some folks as being described as a surprise. I would just ask the community to look back to their notes for the August 8th board meeting, where we had a summary and an action item on the bus garage. And then we've also included it in the superintendent updates in December and January. February is I Love to Read Month, and I was honored to kick off this event at Stonebridge on Monday with a reading of Dr. Seuss's The Lorax. We talked about the environment and doing our best to protect it. I'd like to thank our 5th grade team at Stonebridge for creating this and organizing the event, and I'll be visiting other schools throughout the month. Finally, for the superintendent's report, I'd like to share that we've been recognized both locally and nationally for the work we're doing in social emotional learning. To help our community understand the importance and value of the work, we've created 2 videos to highlight the social emotional learning in action, because sometimes it can be vague for folks about what that really means. I'm excited to share with you tonight the elementary staff and featuring their work at the elementary level. And Chris at Keister, we have a quick video to show you.
Oh my goodness, good morning. Hi, Jaden. I'm so happy to see you.
It's the bus driver who is the first point of contact. It's crucial, the kind of work that we do.
Hey, Levon, you gotta sit down. Thank you.
The kids noticed all the cameras on the bus, and they told me, we're the bad kids, we're the horrible ones, we need all the camera.
I apologize, is it good now? We're not able to see it on the cameras in here, but it looked like it was going out live, so we can start again. I apologize.
Good morning. Hi, Jaden. I'm so happy to see you.
It's the bus driver who is the first point of contact. It's crucial, the kind of work that we do.
Hey, Levon, you gotta sit down. Thank you.
The kids noticed all the cameras on the bus, and they told me, we're the bad kids, we're the horrible ones, we need all the cameras. There were just kids here who just didn't trust.
Do you think you want to sing the state song?
I want to make sure that first I'm sitting down with them, asking them.
I'm not sure why it's not playing in here. I looked to see Don coming out to help us. It's not showing up on the screens in here, Don. It keeps freezing up even though it's working here. It's freezing, so it works for a
Their
few
day at
minutes, for a
school,
few seconds. And it
really
freezes.
to have a personal connection with them.
What did you do that was kind this weekend? Did you say one good thing to your mom?
What's that?
It's freezing up front now, too.
That's what I'm saying. I'm apologizing. I don't think we can get it to work here. It was going out live, but it is on our website, so I would encourage people to go to our website to watch it, and we'll be sharing it through our Pony e-News this week, too. And I apologize. It's a great video, and I hope that the community will take a few minutes to watch it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that all you had then? Okay. So next we have the student report. We have Elise and Kuluk to share some information for us.
Thank you. So on Saturday, we had our annual snowball dance, and it ended up being really successful. We had over 700 students in attendance, and it ended up being a super fun time. So thank you for everyone who came.
Oh, yeah. So last week, underclassmen had the chance to go and visit different teachers' classes and just talk to them about the courses that they would be able to take next year. And so I think it was maybe during like a flex time, they got to be able to use that time. And I heard a lot of like good things from it. They got to go to their AP teachers and just look at the courses, which I don't really think that I got to do, and I wish I did. So it was really cool. Next week actually is Student Council's biggest week of the year. We have our Blast Week, and so we're just gonna be taking you through that really quick. And really quick, what does Blast Week stand for, Elise?
It stands for Be Loving and Sharing Together.
Yeah, so it's really fun. So to kick off, we have our first gen panel, and those are just gonna be students within our school who identify as first generation, and they'll be discussing, some of their life experiences and just connecting with their peers. Fourth hour, we have our student speakers. A lot of them are from our speech team, and also some of them are from our foreign exchange student program. During lunches, we have a lot of cool stuff going on there. We're gonna try to get some tournaments going, so some rock, paper, scissors tournaments. When I was in middle school, I heard that they did a lot of those, and it was pretty successful, so we'll see how that goes. We also have Free Glue, which is one of our jazz ensembles performing during lunches. They did it during
Free Glue?
Free Glue, yeah. So that's actually their Instagram, so a little plug right there if you guys want to go check them out.
I will go check them out.
Yeah, they're really good. They have the Grace siblings on there, and they performed all over, and so they're really cool. On Tuesday, we have the Wealth Inequality presentation. Third hour, Flex, we'll be having the fashion show, the Heritage Fashion Show. We've had it for about 2 years now, and so that'll be exciting. During that period, we'll also have the fruit tasting happening, ran by Asian Student Union, and so that's just gonna be like fruit and candies from like their childhood, and they'll be sharing it with our peers. Moving on to Wednesday, we have Tony Carr presenting his Black History Month presentation, because February is Black History Month, and so we're trying to incorporate that with our Blast Week. We actually have 3 things that we want to focus on: Black History Month, mental health awareness, and also sustainability. So that whole entire week we'll be discussing it thoroughly. Fourth hour on Wednesday, we have our student athlete panels, and that's going to be like alums or just anybody within our community who are playing like D1, D2, who are just going to be coming back to talk to our students about their experience. Moving on to fifth hour, again, that's during lunches, and so that'll be our rock, paper, scissors tournament. 6th hour, we're going to try to get some mental health presentations in there. And then Thursday, we have Mr. Call doing his Black History Month celebration. And I believe that we're getting a lot of really cool, like, local artists coming in to perform. We also have a lot of students coming in to perform, too, from all of our music programs. And just, like, all of our students who are into poetry coming in, too. During 4th hour, we have our Special Olympics presentation. 6th hour, we have sustainability, a seminar with, this is Stillwater, so super local, talking about sustainability that can happen in Stillwater. On Friday, this is like our biggest day. We have every single hour filled up, starting off with our story arc program that we have within our district. They're gonna be doing a little skit there. Hour 2 is LGBTQ plus panels. Hour 3, mental health again. 4th hour, we're gonna have Betty McCullen come and speak about her experience being a woman in Congress. And then 6th hour, we have our talent show closing up the whole entire week. And then afterwards that, we go into Battle of the Bands, which anybody is welcome to come to. Tickets are $5 at the door, and we're also selling t-shirts for $13. And we have some amazing bands this year, so we hope to see you out there.
Yeah. And then going on to the activity and athletic report outside of student council. So the math league team, we have our last meet on Monday, and we'll be having our banquet in a few weeks to follow that. The Stillwater One Act group placed 3rd at sections. The Alpine ski team had sections on Tuesday, and both the girls and boys team actually placed 1st, and they are state bound. There were also a bunch of individual state qualifiers, my sister included, which I'm super proud of. And then the gymnastics team is hosting a meet tonight. It is senior night, so they're celebrating their 2 seniors on the team this year. The boys hockey team beat White Bear Lake on Tuesday, and they traveled to Cretin-Durham Hall tonight to play that team. The boys and girls Nordic team competed today in sections, and they both qualified for state, which will be happening next Thursday. And then Kulik and I actually just came from the wrestling meet that's happening tonight at the high school. It's senior night as well, and the ponies have a lot of support over there, so hopefully they win a lot of matches. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you very much. All right, moving on, we have some recognition of some students.
All right, thank you. If we could have the Nobel Conference student participants and the adults who accompanied them come forward, please, to be recognized. And as they do so, I'll read just a little short snippet about our recognition guest today. This past fall, a delegation of 20 students, including 2 chaperones, Diane Polasek of the Whitson Foundation and Michael Manero, the lead pilot of This is Stillwater project, which our students just mentioned, attended the Nobel Conference. This conference is a 2-day event hosted annually by Gustavus Adolphus College and has been in existence since 1965. It's authorized by the Nobel Foundation of Stockholm, Sweden. Last year's event featured 3,300 attendees, including representation from over 46 high schools. The conference theme this year was climate change. Its purpose, to bring cutting-edge science issues to the attention of audience of students and interested adults, and to engage a group of panelists in the audience in a discussion of the societal impact of these issues. And we've asked them to come forward just to share a little bit about their experience.
Awesome, thank you.
Fabulous. Board Chair Stivland, Superintendent Pontrelli, Board Directors and District Admin. On behalf of the 20 students who attended the Nobel Conference this fall on climate change, I'd like to thank you for recognizing us this evening. My name is Mason Borchardt, and I attended the conference as a representative of NASA, Native American Student Alliance, and as a student who is passionate about the environment and the arts. What drew me to attend was my belief that we all have a personal connection with the natural world, even if we don't realize it. I garden, I work at a nursery, and I'm outside almost every day. But climate change just doesn't impact people like me. It impacts all of us. The Nobel Conference highlighted that in order to make a difference, we all have to learn about our changed world, because all of us are impacted by climate change. Robert Swan once said, "The greatest threat to our environment is the idea that someone else will save it." This is why we attended the Nobel Conference.
Yeah.
Hello, so I'm Avery Brownhausen. I'm in 9th grade and I also go to the Stillwater High School. And from this conference, we really saw a global aspect of how, climate change affects everyday lives. But Going to that, it really inspired us to bring it to a more localized level and continue bringing it to it because I would say about a year ago, I think we actually came and talked to you about our pilot, This is Stillwater. And since then, we've really grown it. We've been meeting every flex time on Wednesdays, and we've continued working with businesses. Right now, we are in the process of filming a video shoot with Lolo's and When Pigs Flew to just really capture how they are being sustainable. And then through that, we are hoping to get more and more businesses on so that we get a general trend of having people be sustainable, not only like the citizens, but also the businesses, be more sustainable in our city. So yeah.
Fantastic.
I'm Gabby Briggs. I also attended the Nobel Conference, and what I felt that we really got out of it is they talked a lot about changing your perspective on climate change and bringing it to a personal level, but also realizing how big it impacts everyone. So we got to learn a lot about different things that you can do personally at our house that I've brought to my own house, and we've been doing to try to lessen our impacts, and also getting more involved with more local levels with the pilots and just contacting and spreading as much awareness as possible. And it left a big impact, I think, on all of us when we were going home, and just how big of an issue this really was. And we all left feeling that it was a lot more important to us.
So my name is Ava Lutz, and what really struck me about the conference is the way in which they considered climate change on a larger scale than just the environment. How they related it to refugee crises around the world and showed that even as individuals, we have a larger impact than we believe we do. And so because of that, I believe that this conference allowed us to have takeaways about the impact we can have on our own community. Because even though we are just individuals, we can have a larger impact on our community as a whole. And because of this, I think this conference really enriched the pilot that we were a part of and will help us continue on in trying to find new ways to document and explore the ways in which we can be sustainable, not only as individuals, but as a broader community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, you guys.
I had to mention one more thing. Julie Belfans is one of our staff members, and I know she's been before you for many different things that she does with the kids. She engages a ton of time, nights, weekends, everything else to make these things possible. So I wanted to make sure and thank her also in addition.
This is truly inspiring, and I can't wait to see what happens next. You guys are great. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Okay, the next thing we have on our agenda is the open forum. And I'm just going to read some opening remarks. If you wish to speak to the school board, you will be able to do so at the start of the school board meeting during open forum. You may sign in only for yourself, not other individuals or groups, and only in person. The sign-in sheet is made available 30 minutes prior and up to the start of the meeting. Due to time limitations, we will limit the number of speakers to 15, with each speaker receiving 3 minutes. If you spoke at the last meeting, please consider allowing others to sign in before you. After you address the board, please leave the podium. Stillwater Area School District welcomes input from citizens as community involvement fosters better decision-making and improved learning experiences for all students. While comments and questions are welcome during open forum, law prohibits the board from discussing concerns about individual employees or students in a public meeting. We will stop the proceedings immediately if employee or student privacy issues are raised, and direct the speaker to forward comments regarding individual employees or students to the superintendent. Because we are modeling civil discourse for our community, speakers must present their testimony in a respectful manner. Vulgarity, character attacks, malice, or specific complaints identifying staff or students by name or implication will not be permitted. The board will not deliberate, discuss, or engage in conversation with speakers during open forum. However, the board may ask the administration to review the concerns that are presented. And with that, let's begin. Our first speaker tonight is Christy Smith.
Hi, good evening. I'd like to yield my time to the next on the list, okay?
Okay, thank you. All right, so that would be Kathy Harvey.
Hi, my name is Kathy Harvey. I live on Oak Green Avenue in Baytown. Directors, on February 20th, the community design team will present to the board their findings with a proposal for a major new bond issue. In my opinion, the public simply will not trust this superintendent and administration with any more money. Why? We have a new $7.5 million bus garage that we may not be able to use because the district gambled on a conditional use permit with Lake Elmo, and the district lost that gamble. The property lacks basic fire safety and sanitation requirements. We were dependent upon others for the infrastructure to bring it up to standards. Thank you, Chair Stivland, for pointing out the dangers of those contingencies at the time of the 4-3 purchase vote. Thank you to Directors Stivland, Pearson, and Potacek for voting no. Only Director Pelletier voted yes, expressing different concerns. This must have a huge impact on the district budget. The budget and proposed bond directly impact students and families. What direct impact does the bus garage facility have on students? How does going into business as a landlord for a contract provider of busing services directly benefit education? After spending many months looking at sites, the district had the option of simply returning the bond funds to the taxpayers. The owner of the Stagecoach facility had offered a 10-year extension of the lease there. As Director Potacek said during the meeting, he had seen bond funds returned to the public with subsequent great goodwill accomplished in the community. The entire rationale for going into the landlord business was to increase revenue for the general fund. Director Hoheisel estimated that after maintenance costs, the district would net about $125,000 a year for the general fund. So we have a $7.5 million investment and a projected $125,000 annual return. And now, maybe no return. I think that all told that there have been other errors made, and this has been admitted to, and as they compound, we end up with the taxpayers not trusting anybody with any more money. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Julie Grundmann.
Julie Grundmann, 105th Street North, Stillwater. Good evening, Board Chair Stivland, Board Directors, Superintendent Pontrelli, and Student Board representatives. I'm here to speak about the district's bus garage fiasco. The current situation the district finds itself in could have been prevented by more thorough, careful planning by our district administrators before the property purchase was made. It was the responsibility of our top district administrators to put before the board at that time a more comprehensible and complete proposal. This oversight on our top district administrators' part puts us in the bind we are in now. I commend Board Chair Stivland, who on March 29, 2018, and at the time being a board director, conveyed her concerns about the bus garage property that was to be voted on that evening. Her words of wisdom at that board meeting fell upon several of her fellow board directors' deaf ears. This is her quote before being abruptly shut down to get to the vote. I think buying this property is an irresponsible expense, and there's a very good likelihood, in my opinion, that it won't even work because there are two huge contingencies we don't know anything about. Director Pachacek and Director Pearson, also board members at the time, expressed their reservations about buying this property, and along with Director Stivland, sensibly voted no. Kudos to you three, and thank you for your thoughtful, considerate, and insightful comments prior to that unfortunate outcome. That being said, now here we are in this predicament. What happens if the district's CUP amendment is denied? If it is, does the property need to be vacated immediately? And if so, where are the buses, employees, and transportation department crews supposed to go? And more than likely, if the CUP amendment is revoked, there will be litigation and more legal expenses imposed on our district in order to try and fix this. Is there supposed to be some comfort in knowing our district has secured the services of a truly elite expert attorney? That's not practical risk management. At a recent board meeting, Director Pelletier lamented about the increase in legal fees in 2019 compared to 2018. How much more is this debacle of a bus garage going to cost? This is just the latest example of our top district administrators' pattern of putting before the board poorly thought out, incompletely planned proposals that reek of a sense of urgency to vote on when they are not. Also, presenting proposals as if they are the one and only option. In addition, this is yet more aftermath of a previous board majority that was willing to rubber stamp anything that was set before them. This bus garage dilemma was totally avoidable if the top district administrators had done their due diligence before embarking on this folly of a purchase. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Aaron Bai.
Hello, I'm Aaron Bai, Olinda Boulevard in Baytown. When a person is chosen to be part of a recommending body or a recommending committee, it's a badge of honor. And so, I'm talking partly about the CDT, those three letters. The time that is given to the community is given as volunteer looking to have input into the future. As a volunteer, there's no voting power, so it's considered a recommending body. We recently saw this play out in Lake Elmo between the Planning Commission and the City Council having two differing opinions on the bus garage. I bring this up to make sure that you understand that the community design team is just that, a recommending body. What is done is not on their backs, and they take no responsibility if things don't go well. That's on you guys. Listening to open forum speakers over the past few weeks on social media that everyone loves to look at, I heard it brought up that not listening to the community design team is a wasting people's time. It's not a waste of time. No matter what the board chooses, it's not a waste of time. I personally have spent hundreds of hours on such a committee. I was on Oak Park Heights Parks Commission from 2013 to 2019. I spent a lot of time working on plans that nothing came of, and it's okay, because a lot of good came out of that. Most of the ideas never saw the light of day. Some were voted down by City Council, some were voted down by my fellow committee, and some I voted down just because they weren't a good idea. The largest project was one of the most time-consuming. It was a large park at Oak Park Crossings. You probably know it as a big field. That is what the community ended up wanting, even though we were planning on spending millions to make it into green fields and shiny new buildings and a splash pad. But we listened to the community because they wanted a field. It's full of birds and butterflies, and it's gorgeous. The list of ideas and projects that didn't come to completion are too many to list. I can't even remember them all. The small list that was completed is amazing. And my favorite, you're probably familiar with. It's the bike trail that the mountain bike team did. And we saw what an impact a small project made on that group, and then throughout the whole community. And so sometimes these projects that are inexpensive are some of the most impactful. So that's just something to think about in the future. And I'll end with this. The vote that makes sense is based on risk versus reward, not emotion. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next person to speak is Michelle DeZiel.
Good evening, Chair Stivlin and directors and Superintendent Pontrelli. My name is Michelle DeSille. My address is 2783 Legion Avenue North, Lake Elmo. My daughter graduated from Stillwater High School last year, and my son is a senior. Go Ponies. I heard that 834 will be offering implicit bias training, so I want to say thank you to the administration seeing the importance of that training. I'm very glad to hear it. Currently, I'm participating in implicit bias training at the Mastery School located in Minneapolis. I teach second grade and my students are African American. They are bright, inquisitive, and hardworking. Unfortunately, in the United States, there is a negative attitude towards Black people. It is deeply ingrained in our framework as a nation. As a Black woman, I have become cognizant about my bias towards Black people. It is discomforting, but I must work through it. I do this because I care deeply about my students. As leaders of 834, it is essential that you participate in the implicit bias training. As a member of this community, I'm counting on you to provide an equitable education for our children. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Melanie Dollar.
Melanie Dollar, downtown Stillwater. In February 2015, the purchase of a bus terminal for $3.5 million was included as part of the $97.5 million bond referendum. On March 29, 2018, the board approved the purchase of property for a transportation terminal in Lake Elmo. So let's review the comments from the board members that are still current board members, Sarah, Mike, Shelley, and Jennifer. Sarah, we cannot consider purchasing this new property because we have a viable and reasonable proposal for the current property. We have a 2-year extension left on our current contract, and the owner offered to extend our lease for 10 years. I think that buying this new property is an irresponsible expense, and there's very little good likelihood, in my opinion, that it won't work because there are 2 huge contingencies that we don't know anything about. Sarah also asked if that money could be used for the Brookview expansion, but admin and the board majority didn't want anything to do with that idea. Shelley, we're old house people. We buy old houses and they work. They're not perfect, and we fix them up as we go. This is a hard decision. I don't know what's best, but it's what I keep coming back to. I want to reiterate that we have a viable offer that could potentially work really well, and we're not even considering it. We aren't being thorough in our process. Mike, I'm never in a hurry to spend money. We have roughly $6.5 million to work with. I want a fair comparison between the 2 properties. I'm saying $3.7 million is a lot of dollars to make the new property workable. Jennifer, when you weigh these 2 properties, it's absolutely a no-brainer to me. I don't like spending money on a bus garage. It's one of those necessary evils. It's like a microwave. Charging ahead, Board Chair Lehman called for a vote. Mike, Shelley, Sarah, nay. Jennifer, aye. Thank you, Mike, Sarah, and Shelley, for being fiscally responsible. Too bad the previous board did not listen to your concerns, but instead went ahead with this reckless purchase. Now we know that the City of Lake Elmo has started the formal process to revoke the conditional use permit, as the district was required to connect to city water and sewer prior to moving into the new site. As of this date, the work to connect has not even started. And it doesn't appear that the district put any contingencies in place that would protect the taxpayers' purchase if the developer did not meet the requirements. They made a risky purchase. They didn't protect their purchase with any contingencies, and now we own an incredibly expensive piece of property that can't be used for its intended purpose. Speaking of legal fees, during the December 12, 2019 board meeting, Jennifer offered to pay for legal fees she incurred. As the only current board member that voted for this bus garage, this will come in handy as the legal bills start adding up. And I think we all know why the district had more legal expenses in 2019 compared to the previous year, since we are now paying for a new lawyer to manage the bus fiasco. The irony of all this is that $7 million was invested in the south side of the district. But instead of getting an addition to Brookview, the South got an 11-acre piece of property that has inadequate water and sewer on it, making it completely useless for its intended use. That should have everyone outraged. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Diane Polasek.
Thank you, Chairwoman Stivland, directors, and Superintendent Pontrelli. My name is Diane Polasek, and I live in Stillwater Township, and I'm not going to talk about the bus garage. I want to thank our administration and teachers for one thing, for the kids that went to the Nobel Peace Conference, that you were open enough to give our kids unique opportunities. To me, that's the butterfly effect. A small change made here may have a big difference down the road in these kids' lives. So thank you for being open to those ideas and encouraging for the kids. I attended the January 23rd work meeting at the Oak Park building, where Eric Anderson and Rachel Larson and others presented the achievement and integration plans for 2021 and 24. My first comment about that address is the concern it gave me that I thought my hearing was gone. In that room, I was only saved by the young students and younger people around me that 5 times said, "We can't hear you." So my first question for the board is that speak up. Speak into your microphones all the time. Convene your chairs differently so people can hear you in the Oak Park building. And if you want to be heard, then be heard. But I did hear every word that day that Eric Anderson and Rachel Larson said. They are passionate about what the district is doing and committed to continuing the programs being presented tonight about achievement and integration. I heard the speaker from the state say that Stillwater has a model program that other school districts are looking at. We are doing good things. I've heard from administration, students, and parents how the AVID program has been meaningful and important to those kids. I've heard from the Caminos program. I've heard from other programs from other cultures on how welcoming they feel and how encouraged they are by what our school district is doing. Those things I did hear. We have good things happening here. Questions from the board in the last 2 weeks are numerous and flying. I made a copy, and this is back to back. There were a lot of questions. And what I wanted to do was to say thank you to Eric and to Rachel Larson for answering the numerous questions that came up, and whoever else on the administrative board helped answer them as well. They raise issues, some of the questions, and I hope others in the community will read what they are. Some of them are about something as basic as equity. You answered all those questions in a short amount of time on top of all your other job responsibilities, and I want to thank you for the hard work you put in for students and our community for doing that. One of the things I believe I understand in our district is achievement and integration is as stacked and built on each other's programs as other things that I've seen happen. You can't just, it's not only just how they function, but in how they're financed. You get finances here, you build on those finances to make it grow in other places. That's important. If you start good programs, financing them and sustaining them as they grow helps students. It develops organizational sources for more growth and model programs. You cut them, you may take away the very opportunity for those programs to grow. It seems the same will hold true for the achievement and integration programs. I'm asking you to fund them and sustain them for our kids and our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kate Neiman.
Good evening, Chairman Stivland, board members, and Superintendent Pontrelli. I'd like to just read from the policy of the Conflict of Interest Policy, BGP 5.0. This will be short. Starts out by saying that the public office is a trust created by the confidence the electorate has in the integrity of local government officials for the common good and for the benefit of the people. Board members need to maintain and protect public trust placed in them by the electorate of the school district. This is accomplished through policies that observe state statutes regarding conflicts of interest and conducting school business in a manner designed to avoid any conflict of interest or the appearance of impropriety. And in subsection of that 3.1, a board member who is authorized to take part in any manner in making any sale, lease, or contract in official capacity shall not voluntarily have a personal financial interest in that sale, lease, or contract, or personally benefit financially therefrom. The second document is minutes from January 9th of 2019, the Northeast Metropolitan Intermediate School District 916, in which it was announced that member Potacek will not be returning to the Northeast Metro 916 due to his election as board chair of the Stillwater School Board. His replacement is expected to be Sarah Stivlin. During the past months, the board has elected new officers, including Director Stivlin, now residing as the board chair. Subsequent to these elections and inherent in her chairmanship authority, Chairman Stivlin appointed herself to continue serving at the ISD as the ISD 834 representative to ISD 916, a position that receives an approximate $5,000 stipend annually. Let's review the happenings of 2019. In brief, in mid-year, we had a proposal for exploration and negotiation of a separation agreement with the superintendent. Later in the year, the Letterman report demonstrated the community's opinion that the school board's performance has dropped by 12% since 2015. We've had steadily mounting legal fees relating to the school board's negotiations. And we've had ongoing and obvious discord between the board and administration. And looking at some of the major issues that are likely to face the board in 2020. The planning and execution of recommendations from the CDT. Ready?
Can you wrap it up in one sentence?
In a couple sentences. Okay. Resolution between our district, the developers, and the Lake Elmo taxpayers relating to the bus terminal. Development and planning of the 2021 referendum, possibly, and a school board election. I raise concern with you tonight with the decision to appoint yourself to continue serving on the 916 board. I raise concern because I would like to know if other board members were offered the opportunity to fulfill that role. You self-appointed, okay? And secondly, it appears that your predecessors have not done this, that you're breaking rank in that regard. And I believe that the district has a whole lot of business that needs your attention. So I'm concerned that your attention's being divided.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. The next person to speak is Carl Blondin.
Thank you. Carl Blondin, Stillwater, Minnesota. Chair Stivlin, members of the board, Superintendent Pontrelli. As most of you know, I practice law. I've been a licensed attorney in Minnesota for some 35 years. I have won 2 cases at the Minnesota Supreme Court. I say that only in the hope that my comments will have some purchase with the taxpayers listening. Earlier speakers made some comments about the bus facility that we have purchased and are putting up in Lake Elmo. Their comments were in ignorance of the law, and misrepresentation of the facts. They certainly had strong opinions. I'd like to ask those speakers, have any of you won 2 cases at the Minnesota Supreme Court? Raise your hand. Have you won 1 case at the Minnesota Supreme Court? Does anyone even have a license to practice law? That's what I thought. We have a group of people who are ignorant of the law making very rash statements. I want to thank Director Pelletier for the wise use of capital funds to purchase a bus facility, so money from the general fund can be spent on teachers and not renting a bus facility. That is something that every fiscal conservative appreciates. the proper use of capital to minimize expenses in the annual budget. What we know so far is this district contracted to purchase the land on Hudson Road in Lake Elmo. This district fulfilled all terms and obligations of the contract. The vendor, the seller of the property, has apparently not fulfilled the terms of the contract. The city of Lake Elmo, which had the ability to force the contractor to perform, has failed to do so. I want to commend both administration and the board for hiring attorney Peter Michael to represent the school district in this matter, and doing so in a timely manner. I have watched Mr. Michael in the courtroom. I have read his trial memoranda. I have watched him argue at the Court of Appeals. I have read his appellate briefs. Mr. Michael is not merely a good attorney. Mr. Michael is an outstanding attorney. The administration and the board made an excellent decision hiring him to represent this district's interest. The taxpayers may recall that Mr. Michael represented this district when the anti-public education organization 834 Voice sued this district.
I'll have to have you stop.
Mr. Michael won those cases. He will beat the district's opponents in this matter, and he will beat them like a team of rented mules. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. The next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. We have 4 items. The minutes of January 23rd, 2020 business meeting. Item B, the disbursement register from January 25th to February 7th. Item C is the human resources personnel report. And item D, the non-Minnesota resident tuition agreement. Can I get a motion to approve?
Also move.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Director Pearson seconds. Any questions or comments? All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it is unanimous, and we're moving on to reports. Item A is the Achievement and Integration Plan. And I think we need Director Larson and Anderson.
I've got the big classroom voice if you want to.
Good evening, Board Chair Stivlin, Superintendent Pontrelli, members of the board.
Thank you.
Eric Anderson and myself are here tonight to present the first report of the Achievement and Integration Plan due to the Minnesota Department of Education for the school years 2021 to 2023, or 2020 to 2023. And we've had the opportunity to connect with you on January 23rd with a learning session that we got to spend time together discussing where we've been with the past plan and where we're going with the current plan, and also what we're looking at for the upcoming plan. And on December 9th, Dr. McDowell sent you an email letting you know that we were going to be moving forward with the Achievement and Integration Plan in January and February, and if you had any questions to reach out to us, and we appreciate that you've done that. So then along the way, we've had time, and that has brought us here. So tonight, we're not going to go through the entire presentation that's in the packet, but we wanted the public to see that. But if the public would like more detailed information, they are free to watch the learning session on January 23rd that has more of the details. So tonight, we'll go through this fairly fast so that we have questions as you've seen these materials and received them in the board packet last Friday.
So I just thank you for the opportunity. And it's hard to follow up with those amazing public speakers that are our students. They did an amazing job, so I just got to give a shout out to them. That was remarkable. So this says gratitude and recognition, and what I really want to be clear on is the fact that the work of achievement and integration is truly a testament to what happens when students parents, community, staff, and other professional organizations come together with a shared goal of fully serving all, capital ALL, of our students and families. So as you know, we've got kind of a distinct timeline. Today is an opportunity for us to speak our truth, for you to ask some questions, and then the bottom line is we're gonna come back on February 20th, and hopefully, we have made all the necessary responsive adaptations, and then it will come to you as an action item for approval. The other piece is, according to the statute, it's just important to remember that all of the work in the Achievement and Integration Plan is vetted through these 4 areas: access, representation, participation, and outcomes.
So as we shared with you at the learning session on January 23rd, in 2016, the Association Metropolitan School Administrators came together saying, we need to do more. We must do more on behalf of all of our students and our stakeholders that we serve in public education. And so they formed Reimagine Minnesota. And this is a commitment that school districts and school boards have agreed to. And you've heard us say this before, but 3 of the strongest premises for what we do in public education is to ensure that we see all, we serve all, and we support all. So through this, the strategies that Reimagine Minnesota have laid out are a variety of such, and they're meant for sustainability and systemic framework. And a lot of these strategies are things that they've referenced Stillwater for. We've had speakers there sharing insights as to what the Department and Office of Equity and Integration has provided so far within the district. And that has specifically related to our professional development with cultural competency, how we empower student voice, and how we work with staff to understand and identify adult behaviors that may marginalize student and family populations. There are 5 areas of the Achievement and Integration Plan: college and career readiness, family and community engagement, teacher diversity, professional learning, and cross-district student programming. One thing that we'd like to explain is that sometimes the plan seems that it's all-inclusive of what we do. The plan is one component of a larger system within a school framework. We also have achievement integration through every lens that we apply in everything we do. It's part of our school improvement plans, it's part of our professional development, it's part of our learning leaders teams. And so as we walk through this with you tonight, just know that there is so much more happening that is not in this plan, but this is the plan framework that the Minnesota Department of Education asks that we follow to receive the funding. One of the questions that we've been asked is, what is the student demographic of those that participate in AVID? And as you can see, the AVID population is very diverse. And if you're looking at this for the first time, we just want to share with you that we have this by grade cohorts in columns. And so if you look at the 2020 AVID demographics of what we have starting in 8th grade at the middle schools and up through senior high, 12th grade, if you follow the first column down after the labels, you can see that 8th grade, the graduating class of 2024, has 12.3% of the students are Asian, 1.8 Hispanic, 24.6 Black, and 61.4 white. And so we have a total of 57 students that participate in the AVID program in 8th grade and 205 8th through 12th. These are just the AVID courses that we offer. We offer more opportunities with AVID than the courses that they're registered for, but that's what this pertains to. And those numbers have significantly been growing as families have heard more about AVID since we began. Another question that we've received is, what does the budget look like from the state of Minnesota, and how does the revenue work? And so we wanted to just share this with the public. We know we walked through this with you already, but direct services to students must equal at least 80% of total revenue. So we receive $848,000 in revenue for A&I. Professional development may equal no more than 20% of total revenue, and administrative indirect no more than 10% of the total revenue we receive from the state. So you can see those totals there. Just a reminder that AVID is entirely categorical funding, which means there is no impact on the general budget. And you can see the amounts that AVID, as we've been asked to share, have out of the entire A&I budget. So you can see they're broken down into direct services, professional development, admin indirect services, and incentive revenue. Something else that we've been asked to provide is what is the cost per student for AVID? And although I said earlier AVID is much more than just the courses, there's other opportunities that students have, we wanted to give you an example of what other programmatic costs are. Because if you look at AVID alone, you might see that expense and say that's a pretty strong investment per student. And we would say yes it is, and it's an important one that's yielding significant results in narrowing the achievement gap. But what we did for you is we only focused on learning and innovation costs. So this does not include other ancillary costs that may be a part of finance and operations. So we look at the FTE and the Learning and Innovation Department support costs. And so what we did was we broke down what the cost is per student and what the total program cost is, and then divided that by the number of students served. So you can just see some other programmatic comparisons. Now, EL is not a program, but we wanted to give that just for some perspective. But you can see the breakdowns and how much they total. But one thing to keep in mind is that AVID has 0% impact on the general budget because it's categorical.
So one of the questions we've gotten from the board, and we've got it in a bunch of different ways, which I'm really grateful for, is the validation of the WICOR strategies. We've heard from several of you, if WICOR is an evidence-based strategy structure and it's good for the kids in the AVID elective, how do we get it out to everybody? And we have a term for that. We call it WICORizing. And we have a very simple, again, mathematical equation. The way in which we do it is through middle school success. Every 6th and 7th grade student gets the opportunity through the middle success course to get access to writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading strategies. The other way in which we do it is through professional development. So we've been able to send, you can see the vast list, 93 of our secondary teachers to WICOR professional learning opportunities, keeping in mind that those teachers have about 150 touch points with students every single day. So our AVID elective teachers are kind of fond of saying, time sure flies when we WICORize. The other piece that we talked at length about at the learning session, but I just want to bring up a really important point, is this idea of family and community outreach. And what this work has done for me personally, because all of this equity work, this term cultural competency, it all starts with self-awareness. And in collaborating with these amazing families, what I have learned is it's not about cultural competency. You don't just get it. It's about cultural humility. And for me, that means being able to sit with someone's truth, even when it's difficult to hear.
Something that we should be very proud of, and it was one of the questions that we were asked, is what makes Stillwater stand out, is the professional development model, growing in intercultural awareness, competency, and effectiveness. And I want to give kudos to Eric Anderson, Bonnie Lewis, and Terry Dahlhauser for the work that they've done building this program. And I believe it was shared earlier by someone that this has been recognized across the state as exemplar work. And so we just wanted to celebrate this because this is something that we're walking away from in the current plan. We're finishing up this cycle and we're moving into a new area that we'll discuss. But this is all about universal design for culturally inclusive teaching. And one of the greatest things that it works with first, as Eric Anderson said, is our mindset. Are we welcoming and are we willing to understand how our culture impacts those around us? And are we willing to sit with truth from other people when it may be difficult, or we may want to make sure that we're inclusive of everybody? And so then what comes is the skill set. What are the skills in the classroom that we need to make sure we're providing so that every student is a part of the learning experience? And so you can see the different goals and perspectives and strategies of how we've trained 75% of our staff in this model throughout our system, from early childhood through the high school. And we just wanted to share this with you because this is one of the really important practices that the teachers who have utilized this have said their relationship with students have forever been changed, that it gave them the opportunity for the student to share, who might have not otherwise been comfortable, how they're feeling in the classroom, if they're feeling a part of it or if there's something missing. Is the name being pronunciated correctly? Are we respecting everybody's background and place and spirit and just core identity of who they are? And so what we did is we just gave you 2 snapshots of something that particularly high school teachers have used in middle school, a relationship survey. And some of the questions are, my teacher knows and cares about me, what I say matters to my teacher. And what teachers do is they give that survey, and students were able to put their names on it if they wanted. And they were able to write more if they wanted the teacher to be in touch with them. And what we know in education is that if students do not feel respected, do not feel safe and cared about for exactly who they are not going to learn. And so the data that we collected through this showed significant impact on students' engagement and some corollary impact on their academic achievement. This was every student of the teachers who participated in this process.
Thank you.
The entire class.
So for this next year, 3-year plan, we're really grateful that the Minnesota Department of Education added increasing diversity, increasing teacher diversity as a required goal. You can see from our data, we have 18 teachers out of an entire staff of 564, and that's only 3.2% of our teaching staff. Now we need to put that in perspective. When you look at the state of Minnesota, the state of Minnesota is at about 4%. So I have 2 things to say about this data. We need to do better as a district. The state needs to do better as a state. And then one of the things I really appreciated from the Board of Education members is you said you want more frequent communication. We don't want to just have this conversation 1 or 2 times a year. Let's keep it rolling. Let's keep in communication. Let's have an update. So when we talk about student programming, we've got something hot off the presses that I'm going to share with you. So as you know, we've been doing some in-depth collaboration with Stephanie Atkins, the Executive Director of Story Arc. And Stephanie and I have been working on a model that we call braided funding. And tomorrow morning, Stephanie's going to be submitting a grant for $40,000 to the Minnesota State Arts Board. And what it's going to be supporting an expansion of our partnership with South Washington County to include Hastings and Rosemont, Apple Valley, Egan schools. So it's, when we talk about intersectionality between nonprofits and public schools, here's Stephanie on her own with council, writing a grant to bring additional dollars in so that we can serve a broader repertoire of students. So I hope we get it. We'll keep you posted. Is she here? Is Stephanie here?
I saw her.
Can you just stand up so we can give you a shout out? Michael Smith is also back there, and he serves on the board of Story Arc. Would you stand up, please, sir?
So we will not walk through again with you each of the goal areas that are in the plan that you'll approve in 2 weeks. But they are for the public to see in this presentation and in the packet. But what we will do tonight is share with you the areas that are new to the plan, as we've been asked. So something exciting that is going to be added to the plan is more support for BAR, Building Assets, Reducing Risks. And you've received information on how that is reducing disparity and reducing the achievement gap. In fact, the Yeah, the latest statistic I heard from the high school was that first semester failure rates were at 3%. That's a significant decline. And so what we'll be doing is we'll be working with the high school to support funding expansion of the BAR program into the 10th grade and see how we can support it also for 11th through 12th. Now, this will be a support for all students. The BAR program is class-wide, so all freshmen are participating in the BAR program. So that is one of the additions that we're thrilled to share. Another addition that we're excited to share with you is a partnership with Dr. Keith Mays, Professor of African Studies through the University of Minnesota. And he was with us a few weeks ago, connecting with about 40 of our senior high students and having discussions about their experience in the high school and what we could do to improve the culture and their experience. And we had a lot of great insights from him, and he comes highly recommended from South Washington County Schools. He's done work with them. And so we are bringing him in, and we'll continue this relationship and partnership into the new plan. It's in the budget, so that he'll come to work with students and staff on how to have sensitive and courageous and caring and essential conversations to improve our relationships with one another. Oftentimes, we become uncomfortable, so we avoid talking about something, and that can create tension and more harm than we ever intend to. And he just did a phenomenal job with the students and the staff at the high school. And so he will be partnering with us and working with every student in the high school this spring in March, and also all of the staff. And going into conversations such as racially charged language in the hallways and online. How do we respond and how do we do better, and what does that impact on other people? One other thing that we're really excited that we'll be doing with him is one of the insights that he provided us was that students of color were saying that they don't see themselves represented in texts and novels and books. And that was really difficult. And so it's one of his areas of expertise is supporting districts with curriculum and instruction and choice. And so he'll be coming in to work with our secondary ELA team to look at the choices that we'll be making as we look at purchasing the books. Thank you for supporting that plan. And we're also going to be bringing in students, allies, students of color, and inviting them into the process so they can give input onto student choice for novels and textbooks at the high school, and he'll be walking us through all of that. So we're really thrilled about that.
Can I add one more thing? I just want to talk about the importance of elevating student voice and offer my gratitude. First off, I want to thank Principal Bach at the high school. He's been transformational in this equity regard and really does take a by any means necessary approach. And so there were some pretty intense issues that occurred at the high school, and it started with students coming and talking to administration and myself. So we had this dialogue, and then there was what I would describe as a movement moment where the kids said, the student leader said, enough with the talk, we want an action step. It's time for an action step. And it's because of that voice that we procured the funding and are bringing Dr. Mays into the high school. So I just want to give a huge shout out to the student leaders that have been a part of that process.
Another thing that will continue funding is AVID. We often get asked, well, AVID is showing great results, so how do we expand it? And one way that we're expanding it is annually providing AVID professional development in the summer for teachers. And I believe on a slide there was information about how many teachers we have trained in AVID, and that's the WICOR strategies. And so we'll continue doing that so that all teachers have that knowledge and information to utilize in their classrooms. So another really exciting opportunity that Eric Anderson has led and facilitated is a new partnership with Century College. And so this is now being added to the plan, and this is something really exciting. And this directly relates to trying to increase teacher diversity and how we bring in students and encourage them to enter into the field of education. So I'll let Eric share more.
Yeah, so for the last 5 years, as you know, we have run our Summer Success Elementary Summer School program, and we've had student leaders from AVID working in those classrooms. You were gracious enough as a school district and a Board of Education to recognize those student leaders at a Board of Education meeting. And Sue Dion, who's in charge of partnerships at Century College, happened to be at that meeting. And she said, I want in. She said, we've got a pathway, which we're working on at the high school, for education, where students can get a 2-year AS degree, and they have an articulation agreement with the Minnesota State Colleges. It's called a 2+2. So you walk out of Century with that 2-year AS, you can go to any Minnesota State College and get a degree as a licensed educator if you do all the work in 4 years. So their idea in ongoing collaboration is they would like their students who are now in that program to work and serve our elementary students and serve as mentors for our AVID student leaders. In exchange, our AVID student leaders get a day on the Century College campus so they can get oriented as to what it's like to be on a college campus, and many have been on several already. They get an opportunity to learn about the education pathway. And then ultimately they will team. So now instead of having one caring adult as a student leader, we're going to have 2 in our summer success programming. And then the final piece is in the fall. The qualified interested teacher leaders, our kids, are going to have the opportunity to enroll in a PSEO course called Introduction to Education. So we'll see how it goes. I don't have any data to share right now because it's still in the idea stage, but we are really, really pumped about this. So, and then, yeah, it's you.
So just to remind you before we enter into questions, January 23rd, we had the learning session. We're here tonight with the first reading, and we'll be back on February 20th asking for final approval. Last Friday, as part of a board packet, you received an extensive attachment and document with questions that we've collected along the way, and we intentionally put that together in one packet with attachments for you so that you could keep all the information together and you would have it holistically to provide you with the answers to the questions that you have asked in regards to achievement integration. So at this time, we'll take any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. That was wonderful and very inspiring. I appreciate all the time and effort that it took for you guys to put all that information together, and I appreciate the partnership in making some of these incredible opportunities for our students. It really is, it's huge. Sometimes the things that we do for our students that are sort of outside the box have the most incredible impact. The things that we think of when we weren't really planning on the regular activities that we do, sometimes that's the stuff that's where the magic happens. And I believe that's what some of this work is really about. And I do really feel like with you, Eric Anderson, you come up with some really, really amazing partnerships and ideas, and you have this way of synergizing with the different groups and agencies that we have that are happening in our community. So I really appreciate that. You bring an energy to it. I guess I would like to open it up. This is an opportunity for the board to ask any questions that we have. Of course, just as a reminder, this is a report tonight. We'll be asked to vote on this plan at our next meeting.
February 20th.
Yep, so this is just a chance to ask any additional questions that we might have. And so does anybody have anything? Director Pelletier.
Thank you. Just a comment or two first. Just thank you so much for the lengthy answers to the many questions in the packet. I can't believe the media left. I don't know what they were reporting on, but they should have been reporting on this. So, Eric. I am telling you, I've been in a lot of professional settings in my life, and talked to many organizational leaders, and what is the one thing that is always seeming to be lacking in a professional setting? Not always, oftentimes, it's passion. I have never seen an employee with more passion for his work in true gift as Eric Anderson. So and not to discount you, wonderful Rachel. I'm sorry. All right, I'm going to get to the questions. For me, I appreciate, and it's really a statement, but in talking to people, I know that people have a lot of ideas as to, areas of improvement, and that's ongoing. And I just want to thank you for that, and more to come with that. Kevin Mays, that is incredible. Can he please, I don't know, come to the board? Or I certainly hope the board can be included in that, because I'd really like to learn more about what he is doing.
Yeah, so again, back to Principal Bach. He's kind of the pioneer in this area. This is going to start at the high school. Okay. We've built in enough money for him to be able to matriculate to the 2 middle schools as well. And certainly, if the board were interested in collaborating with this gentleman, he is. Kulak, you can speak to your experience if you wouldn't mind. I'd love to have your voice.
That'd be awesome.
So I went to the meeting with Kevin Mays, the professor from the U of M.
And it's actually Dr. Keith Mays, just so everybody, yep.
And it was like such a good meeting, I would say. I feel like the students at our school finally felt like it was a safe space to come and talk about their experiences within the high school. I mean, if they could come, I would love at the school board if you guys could experience that discussion with us. Yeah, I think that my peers really enjoyed having him there, working with him, and we're really excited. I mean, I know I am, and I know a lot of the other classmates that I have who are seniors specifically are really excited. Even though we're seniors, we're really excited to see that this is finally one step to us, going towards this kind of issue that we've always had at Stillwater with that kind of thing. And so, yeah.
Excellent.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you, Kulik. Just lastly, what would you, if you had a few things that you're most proud of with this program?
So you asked me this question a week ago, and I thought, oh, wow, what a great opportunity to showcase. And I didn't realize how hard it would be to respond, because there are so many amazing things happening, and I didn't want to leave anything out. But I've been able to synthesize my thinking, and I'm crystal clear, so I'm going to share it with you. The first, number one, I am proud that we can unapologetically state that in Stillwater Area Public Schools, we are reducing the achievement gap. We can share with our community that we have seen 2 things. Number one, a reduction in the disparity of MCA reading proficiency amongst our racial and ethnic subgroups over the last 3 years. Number 2, we have seen double-digit increases in average proficiency rates on MCA reading amongst students enrolled in AVID.
Excellent.
Goal number 2, or thing number 2 that I'm proud of. I am proud of the work of our transformational superintendent, Denise Pontrelli, and her leadership team, who, along with building principals and district staff, have built a rock-solid, multi-tiered system of supports and comprehensive social-emotional learning framework designed to fully serve all of our students and their families. As a result of this, our achievement and integration programming is now anchored in a larger, systemic, and structural framework. This is important. Achievement and integration programming is not a dangling appendage. It's only effective if it's rooted in systems and structures. And number 3, and this one makes me emotional. Finally, I'm proud of our family and community collaborations. I recently met with a mother who is a refugee from a war-torn country. She's a zealous advocate for her children, has volunteered in their classrooms, and She watches our Board of Education meetings from her home. The first question she asked me when we met was, this is her language, why are those rulers so angry? She was referring to you. She then shared, please tell them my family is happy with the schools. I've done a great deal of reflecting on her statement and keep coming back to a quotation from Mark Nepo's Book of Awakening. Here's what Mark has to say. The time has come to put our stones down. For hands clutching stones can't freely drum. And hearts fisting the past can't freely sing. Please partner with us in letting go and moving forward.
Thank you very much. Did anybody have any other comments or questions?
Well, if nobody else, and thank you. I'd like to take just a couple of minutes. I don't really have any questions because so many of them were asked and answered in the packet. But I did want to touch on a few things, part of the achievement and integration program here, that I think there may be viewers out there that really aren't aware of what the different programming pieces are. I know I wasn't before I came onto this role. And what I had an opportunity last year, I think most of us did here on the board, to take part in what was called the Shadow a Student program. Unfortunately, we didn't have a chance to really share those experiences, and maybe someday we will. But I'm going to share with you my experience that I had last year, which was with a high school student participating in the AVID elective. And one of the questions I think maybe some people have is, what does that mean? What is AVID? And I may not be able to explain it as well as our administration can, but my understanding, it is an elective that some of our students have an opportunity to take based on a variety of criteria. And those students start in the 8th grade and they matriculate through the high school, all the way through. And they take the regular coursework, but they also have an opportunity to take an elective class. So in this case, the student that I shadowed I went to his English class, his biology class, his French class, and then I went to his AVID class. And it was fascinating to be a part of that classroom. During that class period, I wrote down a few things some things that I remembered from that day. There was a period of time that the students had an opportunity to work with one another through some of the challenges that they were having, be it in homework, be it in a test that they recently had. Maybe it was something socially that they had. But there was an example where one student put up a math question on the board. And each of these students have been trained in how to help one another. So it wasn't, one of the students say, I know the answer. No, it was working that student through. How do you get to the answer? Asking questions, how can we work together toward the answer? And I thought that was very good. We had a group of students working together as peers to find a solution for a problem. And I thought it was very interesting to have that experience there. They were also assigned work that was specific to, I believe, the AVID curriculum, tailored to how to time management, study tools, notes, those types of things. There was a period of time in that classroom that was devoted to that. I also had an opportunity that day to meet 2 students. We talk about not only our academic achievement, but also college and career readiness. How does AVID impact that? I had an opportunity, 2 students who wanted to come up to me and talk about the fact that they were working part-time at Anderson during the school year, And during the summertime, they were working there full time. And they were so excited that they weren't just there just to observe and be kind of a fly on the wall. They were there to participate. They were there to work. And they were hopeful that they would go to college and one day work at Anderson. And I thought that was incredibly powerful that we have kids in our school that have this opportunity to take part in career education right there as part of AVID. So it's more than just learning how to take notes, learning how to work with one another. It's also career opportunities, learning about what careers are about. I observed a session, I think I was there twice. I observed a session in which the seniors were announcing their post-secondary decisions. It was to the enthusiastic support of their classmates. When I say enthusiastic, I mean loud. It was. But it was
call that emotionally expressive.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to see that time of year. I believe it was in spring when these students were making their decisions of where they were going to be going, and many of these students, it was their first time in their family. They were going to be their first member of their family to go to college. And so it was very meaningful for them, not just that I applied to a few schools and got one in. This was something that was life-changing for them and their family. I also had an opportunity in a classroom that there was a session in which there was a circle, and I believe it was maybe it was a poem exercise, and each one of the students had a requirement that they had to list out a few questions. And there was a mingling, and so they would walk up to a person and ask 3 quick questions about what they had done in the assignment, what was important to them about the poem. And it was very interesting because they had to think very quickly on their feet what were the answers to those questions. It's teaching interviewing skills. It's teaching communication skills. But then when it was done and they sat back down in the circle and they were going through what the importance of the exercise was, I felt like, well, it's probably about time for this old guy in dress pants to leave, so I started to leave. But there was a girl that was on the perimeter of the group, and she made it a point to make eye contact with me. And like you, Eric, I get emotional here. Because she wanted to reach out to me and tell me how important AVID was to her and her family. She said that if it weren't for AVID, if it weren't for her peers and her teachers in that program, she may not be in school. She said that it is a supportive group that makes me excited to come to school. When I have bad days at home, when I have bad weekends, I'm excited to come to school because of AVID. That's my experience that I had with AVID. And I would encourage board members, if you have questions that go beyond the budget, beyond what the nuts and bolts are, go see.
Thank you, Director Burns, for sharing that story. That was really amazing. And I was going to say the same thing. I think that we're always encouraged to come and visit. I've had a tour in the past of the AVID classrooms, albeit, in my opinion, it was too short. So I've been thinking about coming back to visit as well. And I think it would be okay for any of us to come.
What that does, what Director Burns modeled there is what we call insider's eyes. It's one thing to read about the program. It's one thing to look at the standardized testing gap. That doesn't tell the story. There is a difference between data-driven and data-informed. And data-informed includes the student story.
To know the whole story, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Does anybody else have a question right now?
I have a
Kulak?
remark.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have a question. I don't know if you guys know, but I'm in AVID too. And I mean, I would like to just say that all of my peers are watching these meetings as, you know, we discuss AVID and the BAR program. And if you guys ever do have any questions, like I'm open to answering or, you know, talking to you guys about it. And I know that any of my peers would be open to talking to you guys more about it too. So
Thank you so much. Since you spoke up, I'm going to put you on the spot because I'm very curious about this. I know that you've mentioned in your presentation that all of our middle school students are getting in their middle school success experience the Wicker strategies, and you talked about how many professional development experiences we've had for people to learn about the, you know, Cornell note-taking and some of those Wicker strategies as well. I'm curious to know, in your experience, Kulak, is that Wickerizing actually happening in the district-wide, or is it still evolving?
yeah, I would say that it definitely is. I remember learning it in 8th grade because I've been in AVID since 8th grade, and us using it within the AVID classroom. But as you go on, people aren't like directly saying Wicker, but it definitely is still like the Wicker kind of, you know, way. And then I use Cornell notes every single day. I remember being an 8th grader and being so stressed out about learning the Cornell, you know, like type of note taking. But now I use it like in my physics class, which is like my hardest class, and I see it helping me every single day. So I would say that the things that I learned in AVID, whether it be Wicker, Cornell notes, or just the organizing of the planner and the binder, has helped me a lot.
That's great. Good to hear. Thank you. So I had one comment. Did you want to go?
I did have something to say, and you know, I know you're passionate about this work, and that's fantastic, and I'm passionate about the achievement gap, and that is part of this work, right? I've been trying to stress that that we're supposed to be closing the gap, whether you're in AVID or not, right? Whether you're part of taking AVID or whether you're not taking AVID, we're supposed to be closing the gap with achievement integration funding. So I have studied MDE's report card, and just kind of to give a generalized overview of what I've found is that with the gap, that math, we are very inconsistent. While Group A's proficiency has declined every year, Group B and C gaps have seen an increase. The D and E groups have seen decrease in the gap because Group A's proficiency has declined. Group D and E proficiency levels are not better than they were in 2016. For reading, Group A's proficiency has decreased every year since 2016 data. Group B proficiency has increased except for 2018, but the gap is closing because Group A's proficiency has decreased. The Group D gap is inconsistent and proficiency is less than the 2016 data. The same with Group E. The gap has been increasing with a proficiency decline. The C subgroup saw a big drop in proficiency last year to below 2016 numbers. For science, they've been very inconsistent in proficiencies. All students show a bit of recovery last year, and the gap is closing in most subgroups but flat with the D group. All years prior to last, the gaps were very inconsistent. I've asked a lot of questions since we've started, and I started, emailing Bob early on, and most of my questions haven't been satisfied in your responses. I would like to see more academic supports in this to close the gap is what I would like to see. From what I'm gathering, what's different from what we've done in the last 3 years, we really haven't had a big impact in closing the gap, as you can see from what I just read. I would like to see, we have Dr. Keith Mays, and collaboration with Century is really the two different impacts we're having. I just would like to see, would like to know how that is going to increase the proficiency and close the gap, because I'm on the same page as you. I want the gap closed. I want proficiency. I want our kids to be better and the best they can be. I just think I would like to see more academic supports to get there.
And before Director Larson jumps in, we do, want to keep in mind that there are three sort of separate things that are interconnected. We have a standardized testing gap, and that's what we're talking about with MCA scores. We have an achievement gap, which is, a little bit more encompassing. And then when we're talking about using categorical funding, which has zero impact on our general fund budget, to fully serve traditionally underserved students and families, we're talking about narrowing an opportunity gap. So it's really important as we have this dialogue that we're clear on exactly what it is we're talking about. So right now we're talking about MCA scores.
I wish I would have had access to the data you just read to everybody
Hold it all
because
on my own.
Okay, because we have secure report access through MDE that gives us detailed breakdowns, which we developed our data from. So I don't know what you were referencing with A to B to C, so I cannot respond to that. However, this is an important conversation, and our AVID achievement gap is significantly decreasing, and we can demonstrate that with you. So we would welcome a conversation, a further learning session, because we feel like there's a lot that was just thrown out there that does not give us a chance to respond with quantitative data that we have through secure reports through MDE that we can demonstrate. And we analyze the achievement gap all the time. That's what we do.
Yeah. Rachel, what do you mean by secure reports?
The public does not see the entire report. These are complex algorithms that they go into the North Star accountability. So the public sees the Minnesota report card. So the data that you're referencing puts groups all together. It does not separate groups. And so what we provide data is a cohort. A cohort is a group of students that you can follow from one grade to the next. Group data that's on the MDE report card puts everybody in mixed grades together so you can't compare and analyze specific results. So that's where the inaccuracies can come from, looking at the data in just a view of an achievement gap to analyze this program.
So actually, that was one of my questions that I was going to ask later is, and it came up after we got the responses, is it possible to get the data specific to any of our students that have been in AVID for, say, like at least a year or something like that?
Absolutely. As we shared with you at the learning session, some of it is personally identifiable because if you're looking at a grade level of students in AVID and there's 40 students, you're going to know if we break those down by student subgroups who those students are.
So
if
we'd
we're
have to be
looking in terms of racial
about
identity.
how we look at it. But,
Yep. But one thing that we'd like to highlight is that in this slide here, if you would share this slide, Don, thank you. We show you that the two classes of 2020 and 2021, so these are the graduating classes, these are AVID students, they increased their MCA reading proficiency by 32.14%. That's absolutely identifiable to reducing the achievement gap. And to break that down for numbers for you, thank you for asking that, Chair Stivland, that means that 22 out of 74 students increased proficiency. That's significant. And what that also means is 16 students went from does not meet and partially meet to meets MCA. Now keep in mind, this is just MCA. And as Eric said, when we're talking achievement gap, it is so much more comprehensive than a standardized test score. So, but that is some statistic we would love to share further information with you on.
And I appreciate that. I mean, I think that shows significant amount of growth. I think the concern is that we're still seeing that it's only 32%. Right, so that's lower than what the average. 32% are proficient. Isn't that what, if I'm reading that correctly?
No, 32% increased their proficiency rate, so they grew. And so what we're saying is 22 out of 74 students raised their proficiency in the AVID group, which is significant.
Yeah, definitely.
The only part that's a little confusing, proficiency seems to me something you are or you aren't.
It's the end goal.
Yeah, no, my point is that's the cutoff, isn't it? If you're proficient? Or is it graded like more proficient?
It depends on the individual student because some parents would say that their child who makes 2% growth, that's significant for that child and where they started. So to hold every child to the same level in terms of an equal level of performance can get really complex. But yeah, we want every student to be at the proficiency level. Keep in mind that the MCA assesses standards that are covered. So it's not that it's assessing every skill of literacy, every skill of math. It's assessing how we're performing according to the state standard benchmarks. So then we bring in other forms of data to look at how students are growing. That would be the NWEA map. That would be at the elementary level, FastBridge. So there are other forms that we use to get that information.
Yeah, I think it's really important to keep this in perspective. I mean, the entire budget that we're approving is over $1 million, and the AVID portion of it is about $750,000. That's a lot of money. And so we're just trying to be thoughtful to make sure that it is actually doing what we want it to do. I understand completely that the experience for our students is phenomenal, and the program itself is amazing, and it's really impacting a lot of people's lives. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that all of our students are going to be prepared for what comes next after they graduate. You know, are they going to be ready? Do they have the reading skills and the math skills to be successful when they go off to college? And so that's a valid question. That's the core of what we do. It's the school system, right? We want to make sure we're making sure everybody has what they need to be successful. And so
I appreciate that question.
That's the question.
Yeah, and one thing I would like to correct that I did in the slide when we compared program numbers and we broke down the cost of AVID, what I did not include were the 6th and 7th grade students that we fund the teachers' salaries for to teach WICOR strategies to all 6th and 7th grade students. Yeah. So that is another 1,288 students we serve through that AVID funding. And when you include those students, that is an investment of $470 per student, including all 6th and 7th grade, and then the students, the 205 who participate in the AVID elective and other programming. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Did you have something you wanted to say?
No.
Oh.
I just, could I, thank you, Chair. Could I have perhaps, given the discussion that just occurred with Director Riley, perhaps that those figures and where you got that, and then
that'd be helpful.
Have staff have a conversation about that, so we can, you know, because I have no idea what that was, but I would like to hear where that's at and where that falls prior to the next meeting or even during the next meeting.
That would be
wonderful. Have an answer to that.
Okay. I think we could sit down and look at and share information.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Thank you.
I think the clarification that you gave us earlier, Eric, was really helpful, that we're looking at 3 different kind of categories of support. And I think what we're talking about here too is there's a difference between measuring growth, which is phenomenal. Obviously, that's what we're looking at with your slides, and measuring proficiency. And if we're seeing growth, awesome. But if we're not seeing quite the proficiency we'd like to see, then what else can we do? Should we be looking at adding more to whatever it is we're already doing to make sure that we're giving enough support to really get people to where they need to be? That's the question, really. So, yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. Does anybody else have anything they want to share?
I just have one.
Oh, yes.
The only thing that I would add to it, just as I'm listening to the conversation, is a reminder that achievement integration, as you're kind of figuring out, you know, what you may want to add, change, adapt, the achievement integration program is not singly about achievement gap. It's not singly about achievement. If I take you back to the, I think it's the 4th slide of the presentation, the purpose of achievement and integration is really 4 things combined together that we're trying to attack. And they include not only achievement, but they include opportunity for kids, and they include integration, which is why in the report, and I just wanted to say this to remind people, which is why in the report, what gets reported on is the Caminos program and our partnerships. So the idea of just getting the achievement integration, just getting kids to its purpose, just to create kids achieving more academically or by standardized testing, is only one portion of the achievement integration purpose or the achievement integration dollars. The second thing that I would just add to that on a more global scale, because I appreciate this part of the conversation, and I think I brought this up before, is just simply that if we're going to look at our specialized programs for purposes of this in the context of what exactly are they doing for our students, then I think it's important to look back at this slide and make sure we take that same lens with all of our specialized programs and what it is we're gaining, whether it's with achievement or anything like that.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Dr. Riley? We'll take it.
So I understand. My point in all of this is we are doing all of these things. This plan that we have laid out, all of these things that we have been doing. I would like to see a little more concerted effort into growing or closing the gap, sorry. If we could put a little bit more support. I didn't say that we have to cut everything else out. What I'm asking is, can we do something to add in there to think it? I mean, this is what you do. I mean, can you come up with something for us that you think would actually help close the gap and add to the program that you have already?
I would argue that we are doing that.
It's not closing.
And that we.
It's not closing, is my point. We aren't closing the gap.
Your lens, with all due respect, ma'am, is that we're not closing the standardized testing gap.
Which is a part of it.
Let me finish, please, before you finish your narrative. We need to sit down with people that have expertise in data. With all due respect, none of you, this is what policy governance is about. You have to make really important decisions. To Board Chair Stivlin's comment, it is important. I mean, there's a lot of money on the line, and we need to be justifying the efficacy of our programming. But we also need to sit down with the licensed professional educators who are experts in this area and take a much deeper dive before we draw those types of conclusions.
Okay, so I think you had something you wanted to share?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm just gonna, I think we probably want to move on here as fairly soon, but I just want to say I want to have a comment about one additional component that is in this year. I don't think this was in here last year. I think this is another new thing, that there's an Avid Summer Art program and Avid Summer Phi-Ed that is a way for us to integrate with other districts and participate in those two activities during the summer. And if I understand correctly, this is designed to allow Avid students to be able to fulfill those two electives during the summer so that they can have the space in their class schedule to have the Avid as their elective during the school year. Is that correct?
That's spot on.
Okay, so my point of raising that up is because this is something I personally think we need to be focusing on. If we had a different class period schedule at the high school, would that solve that problem as well? If we had more opportunity for electives at the high school?
I don't think it requires a different schedule. I think it requires a different way of thinking, of just coming together to say, how can we make opportunities happen? For example, the summer situation. So that came as a result of Avid elective students couldn't participate unless they didn't want to have any other elective. Other students don't face that same scenario of choice. And so it's a matter of just looking at all the different situations that put stress on student schedules and seeing what we can do. And we'd be interested in that.
I think, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so I actually did the online gym, or not the online, but like the Avid gym credit over the summer. And it was basically so that I could take like Spanish for another year, or that I could fulfill my art credits. So basically it was so that I could graduate and still do Avid for like 8th through 12th grade. So,
Thank you for sharing that. And my point is that I don't think this is just an Avid problem. I really do think this is a problem. We've heard from a lot of students. We've had students come up and speak at open forum on this, and it's an issue that I think we need to, we have been talking a little bit about it, but I think we need to keep thinking about it because we just don't have enough time. The students don't have enough time in their schedule to do all the electives they want to do or need to do in order to graduate. So I just want to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Director?
And I've been, if you would, go back to your slide, and then you had one where you had the abbreviations for, it was one before this. You had the GATE program up there. Now, when I saw that, the first thing that dawned on me always, and I always push that, is don't assume everybody else knows what they stand
thank you.
for.
Yeah.
But the point is this, and I think Tina's right and you're right. I don't think you can blame the achievement, lack of, or achievement necessarily, although I do see you're making progress in that area. But what the bigger conversation, which we can't disregard, is student achievement. But there's a metaphor here, is that if you look at the last grouping there, EL stands for English Language Learners. Now, part of what you try to do is help them learn the language. But that doesn't mean that they're exclusively responsible whether kids can read or whether kids can achieve in math. It's a bigger issue than that. What I heard you say, Rachel, and I welcome that, and I think that's part of our schedule, is quarterly reports or semester reports on how students are doing. And some of those kids are going to be in the GATE program. Some of those kids are going to be in the ALC, Alternative Learning Center. And some of those kids are going to be English language learners. And they all have a particular slant, but the commonality to all of this is student achievement. But again, the welcoming is, let's continue to have that conversation. And I think there's no doubt in my mind that what you're doing in the AVID program is wonderful. But at the same time, let's not kill the messenger, because some people will look at this and say there are other areas or other things. Is it because we're not getting as many kids as we need in AVID? Maybe we need all kids in AVID. So
I think one thing that I would like to highlight, because I think we're talking a few different things. Achievement integration is categorical, and MDE approves our plan and budget based on how we do these three things. So this is not general for every child, right? And so I think we're conflating some things, talking about achievement in general across the district, and then what we do specifically with achievement integration per statute. So achievement integration per statute 124D.861 subdivision 1A, reduce achievement disparities, benefit the underserved, and reduce disparities for the underserved. So that specifically asks us to use funding, not for every single student across the system, but it's targeted funding for specific achievement integration purposes that the state legislature has required. So that's just one perspective to have. Why we're here tonight, it's categorical achievement integration funding that's different from the general funding and operation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right, I think, thank you very much for your time and your presentation. The next item on our agenda is the demographic study quotes. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Hoheisel.
Thank you, Chair Stivlin, Superintendent Pontrelli, school board members. What is in front of you tonight, and I would like to recognize that there's additional information, I'll go into that in a second, that during the boundary conversation that the school board had at the work session January, there was consideration given to procuring a complete demographic study. What was presented, or what in the packet, at least originally, and on the cover letters, we had received two quotes, one from Davis Demographics, and you go back and you think of the January meeting, we referred to it as the Texas Company, was the company that South Washington County was using for their demographic information. So just so you can make that connection of Davis equals Texas. And then Hazel Reinhardt Consulting, and Hazel had done a demographic study for the district in 2013 and made a updated revision to that, I believe in 2015 timeline, somewhere in there. When meeting with Chair Stivland and Director Riley this week. There was also a request to get a quote from Teamworks International. Is it international? Yep. And because they had done our last demographic study that was given to the district in December of 18. And so that information has also become available. I know Sherry has updated the website, so the entirety of the proposals are out there. I just wanted to call attention to that because if anybody is looking at the original information or had printed off the original information from this past weekend, you're missing a component. So of the 3 demographic quotes, essentially, and I would say holistically, they all do the same thing. There's components that each one presents maybe differently. For an example, they all are looking at resident birth rates and the attendance area. They have, enrollment information that we provide to them. They upload. Davis and Teamworks goes historical enrollment. I would say the district does historical enrollment. We certainly can provide that. Is that a factor that the board would be interested in looking at? The geocoding of K-12 enrollments to parcels, that's both Davis and the Hazel Reinhardt. As far as yield analysis, and we've talked about K-12 yield analysis of the housing type, and this is what Bob has actually used as we've gone through the developments as of late, trying to keep the board updated that a single-family residential will yield a different amount of potential kids than maybe an apartment complex or a townhome. Teamworks does yield analysis. Hazel does yield analysis. Davis does not. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when you start kind of weighing out what are we looking for, what is our goal for a demographic study, I think they all can get you there. Again, Davis and Hazel do cohort survival, meaning as kids move grade to grade to grade, do we typically gain? Do we typically lose? So each has different components. I believe they're probably all going to get you to, well, depending on what you're looking for, if it's just truly a higher level, what are we looking at, for the next 5 to 10 years, every company is going to be able to provide that for you. You were given costs. Both Hazel Reinhardt's proposal and Teamworks' proposal gives costs incrementally, but I just took the total of all of them because that kind of gets you to the same result as the other companies. Davis did not break it out. Davis just said, here's our cost, which was $23,750. Teamworks was $15,000 and Hazel's was $19,250. So I will open it up for questions at this time. It's just a review of what we have in front of us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Kristen, can you give a little background? Because we've had somewhat of this conversation, particularly the Texas group, as we talk about Davis. Because South Wash brought them in. And do you know anything more? I mean, the proximity, I know you know their administrators, their planners. Are there some unique things that they do, or is it a question of quality? In other words, that seems out of the ordinary to bring somebody in from Texas and say, take a look here. We've had experiences with the other 2 vendors personally here. Do you know anything that you could shed the light on what Davis brought to Woodbury, or perhaps any of your other fellow administrators in conversations, maybe what you've picked up and what they brought to South Wash that the other 2 perhaps didn't? Or
So I have not had a conversation with South Wash, but I will say as I was analyzing their proposal, one of the elements, and it's listed as an other product, a planning software, they essentially, pin mark each house in the district and say, what kids are attending here, possibly what is their gender, what is, the grade, and they're gathering that information essentially from our student information system, and you're able to move these kids around, help with the boundary process, as far as, you know what attendance area they're in, you know what grade they're in. As you work through boundaries, you can move them. I will say this, the difference between, and I don't want to presume South Wash has that, but I'm saying I can see that being an enticing feature for a district if, and when I say is if, our district currently uses Guide K-12, which is our software system that we use for the boundary process, which essentially does the same thing. That's why we're able to do committee work. We know where those kids are, we upload it, we can do boundaries and do different things based on that. Now, if South Wash didn't have a component like that, I certainly can see, it's a very, very useful tool. We've talked about it. You guys have seen the results of it. Certainly you, Mike, you've been with us doing this for a while.
What I respond very quickly, and I think some of you, Superintendent Pontrelli, I think you, Sarah, I think some others attended an all-day session.
That was not me.
Yep.
Way back. Well, when I went to MSBA, I sat in, is it LIFCO? Is that?
Don Lifto.
Yeah, and I,
Baker Tilly is there, they used to be Springstead.
yeah, and I only attended for an hour, so I'm saying it wasn't like I got great knowledge. But what they did do is they did something similar to what you're talking about. And basically what they did for the whole district is to profile it. And so, for example, if it were my house and I had 4 or 5 kids, they knew where all those kids went to school, and they profiled that. Also, they knew if they had seniors, citizens, or whatever age groups, but they profiled the whole district, and then accordingly, they would do their messaging or the contacting or the door-to-doors, whatever. Now, that's not necessarily a demographic study. It is in a way, because it is demographics. But it was a different purpose, and they would talk about, especially in the early stages, they got so much information. And then whatever campaign they had later on, or if they did have a campaign, or others did it, they would tailor it accordingly. But maybe that's a different purpose than the intent here.
I would say that is, to the best of my knowledge, none of the 3 companies would provide essentially an overarching census of what is within, your district.
Any other questions? Oh, yes, Director Pelletier.
Thank you. Really quick, and I'm going to drop this on you, and you probably won't know the answer, so I apologize. But back when this was a few months ago, and I made the motion it was very late at night, for expenditure for an updated demographic study. I believe it was it didn't get a second, it didn't pass, but I'm wondering, I feel like it was $10K, it was half the dollar amount. Is that accurate?
No.
And if it is, what is the difference between that moment in time and where we're at right now?
So, I believe we were talking about Teamworks at that time, because we were trying to, and Teamworks, that's one of the components that came out of the meeting this week, is how quickly do these turn around. Teamworks is essentially once they get the student information from my office, they move forward and they should be able to complete their analysis within 3 weeks or so, give or take. The other companies are going to take a few months. But anyway, at that time when we were talking Teamworks, in the proposal, they do have, again, back to I lumped everything as one giant package. There is a $8,500 element, and I'm trying to see the lines here. An $8,500 element that takes the enrollment, the facility utilization, the bursts, and then socioeconomic status, and that's $8,500. Then when you add district-wide housing to reflect overall housing trends, that's another $5,000.
So the initial did not have the housing trends as part of that?
I can't recall what that discussion was. I'm saying there's components that add up to $15,000. So I'm inclined to say we were talking about an element, not their whole deal.
Got it. Thank you.
I think too, there might have been a different company that we were thinking about, but we had some questions about.
I thought it was Teamworks that we were discussing.
No, I don't remember either, but okay. Did you have a question?
Yeah,
So I've gone through this and can't find, what are the, for the three companies, the projection? Is it 10 years? Is it 5 years?
If I have it correctly, I believe the Hazel Reinhardt's is 7, and I think the Davis Company was at 7 as well.
7 for Davis, yes.
And then I believe when Teamworks did theirs, we told them how far we wanted them to go out. And so my guess would be, so total guess, is it would still be 7. I can't imagine they'd go more than 10. Because just like we heard with the conversations at CDT, once you get past
It's not any good.
7, usually those demographics companies that I've seen, 7 to 10 is probably the max somebody's going to be willing to go out.
Thank you. And just a follow-up, kind of a follow-up, is can we get references for these other school districts that have used them that we could call and see the benefits of the different ones?
Yes.
That would be great.
Yes.
Good idea. Did you have a question, Director Pelletier?
No, I'm good.
Oh,
Thank
sorry.
you.
Director Burns?
Thanks. Just very quickly, could you, if you had conversation with the Davis group in terms of their deliverable date, I saw in the agreement that it was a little bit worded funky, but it said that maybe in June. But did they give an indication of what the timeline would be for the deliverable?
They said, as with Hazel, it's as soon as a decision is made and how quickly they can get someone on site. So it's a few months worth of work. So in the June proposal, I'm a little concerned that that was the school site locator that was complimentary until June. But again, I can clarify when they actually believe, because I had asked them that question. I had gone through actually 2 calls, an informational call with them and then a training webinar with them so I could understand the context of what exactly they were offering. And it was more along the lines of how quickly can they get a team to focus on the work. What they said, actually, that biggest hang up for time for them is they're getting incomplete or inaccurate data from the district that they work for. So they'll ask for a particular thing, the district sends it over in an Excel version, they're like, no, we wanted it this way, you know what I mean? It's almost this jogging. So I think, I would assume a few months, no different than Hazel, but I can certainly double check that if the board was to make a decision to go with them on the 20th, how quickly can they mobilize and get a report back to us? I can certainly do that.
Can I just, a quick follow-up? The sense that I have from Davis was that they were, like you say, going to rely to an extent upon, maybe a large extent, the district's information.
Correct.
Do you believe that that's the same that Hazel Reinhardt, or are they going out and getting that information for how new housing starts and that kind of thing on their own?
So when I say district information, they're grabbing our current student enrollment. Okay. They're all going to ask for that. That's not going to change. And then they will seek out talking to the county for birth rates, and they will seek out talking, doing what they can or whatever's out there for cities as far as developments. They will all do, the approach will look very similar regardless of the company you go with. Every one of them needs to rely on a component of our data.
Right.
Director Riley?
But if you're looking for up-to-the-minute kind of information, we had talked about this in our meeting yesterday, too, that the most reliable way to do that is for Bob to continue to make calls to neighboring districts.
Well, and I...
To clarify that.
I got it. That's true. That was the conversation. There was also conversation as it relates to, that is, when you look at demographics, housing or growth developments are one slice of an entire pie, because you also don't know what's happening with your pre-existing housing stock. Is everything else stagnant? Bob is, God bless him, trying to base information off of old yield rates. Remember that was a big component that has come through. But he's not calculating birth rates. He's just because a development shows and we can presume kids, it doesn't mean that housing stock elsewhere is, it could be declining. And so if you're truly looking for what developments exist and what housings and what we can project, sure, we can absolutely continue to do that. And Bob will talk to me after the meeting for saying that we can. However, given that, it is nowhere near. It's a piece. It's a piece of the pie, and I think we can do that if you're looking to, for whatever reason you want to do that, but you are missing an awful lot of other things that impact demographics other than housing developments in areas.
Sorry, Bob.
It's all good.
Anyone else? All right, I would just like to remind people, if you continue to have questions between now and the 20th,
email
know where to
you.
send them. Email me. I'll get them to the right person. All right, let's move on. Action items. The first item we have is the final reading of policy number 521, and I'm going to turn that over to the new chair of the policy working group.
All right, let me get back over here. So this is policy 521. We had our second reading, I believe, at the last board meeting. There were, from that format, there were a few minor changes that I want to point out before, then if people have questions about it, we can. I believe one was on the first line of the policy. It had it went from, it had been stated disabled students, and we changed that language to students with disability. And the other change is at the bottom where it identifies the contact information that was not listed previously, the contact information for the district's ADA Section 504 coordinator. We've added that information to the bottom, but otherwise the language remains the same as what was there for the last reading, the second reading at the last board meeting. So if anybody has any questions.
Does anybody have any questions? Yes, Director Pelletier.
Nope, I was going to make a motion if that's okay. I move to approve policy 521 and remove our 1.3.3. All right, that's my motion.
All right, thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Great. Any further questions? All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, it is unanimous. Let's move on to B, approval of the district service consultants. You want to take that?
Sure.
Okay.
The school district utilizes services of various vendors and consultants for areas that the district does not employ staff for. And the board has been provided with a schedule of RFPs for a rotation of looking at our consultants. When you look at the information for this evening, I want to make one note. Laura Booth had her own law firm, and she has now moved to Ratwick, Rozak and Maloney. And so where you see legal counsel, Kennedy and Graven Chartered, and Booth Law Group, that will read Ratwick and Rozak and Maloney because she's joined that law firm. So on your disbursements, when you see Ratwick, it will be Laura Booth. Yes. So with that, the district's worked with these consultants for several years to help care for our human, financial, and facility resources. And administration recommends appointing these consultants for this coming year.
One note here is that if you look at the minutes for the last meeting, particularly page 13, I think what we approved at that meeting was that we would approve BWBR architectural services for the summer projects, but then the amendment that passed unanimously was to put out an RFP for architectural services going forward to consider other possibilities. So that's the one thing I think we have to be aware of when we look at that motion.
Right. Yes, thank you.
And I have been working on an RFP. My hope is to have it publicized by next Friday for architectural services. That's my goal.
Yep.
Awesome, thank you. Director Riley?
And we are actually reviewing RFPs right now for a financial auditor in the finance and ops group. I guess I'm just would like a little clarity going forward with how are we going to do this as the list comes. I know we're going to start going through RFPs and things, and I'm not aware of the list, if there is a list of what the schedule is going to be, and if there is, could I get one? But having a financial auditor on here right now, and we're reviewing for next month already.
Yeah, I believe this list was put in the board's files earlier. Do you remember this colored one? That's the list that we're referring to.
Actually, no.
That's all right.
I don't.
We can get you a copy.
Okay.
Yeah. Dr. Pearson?
Well, I just wanted to mention, I think the way that we want to do this going forward is it should be part of our organizational meeting. Here's who we have today, and then as we approve different people, the list would be updated with that. It happens to be February that we're getting to it, but I think in the future, it'll come that first meeting, here's who we have right now, and then as we approve new ones, then it would be replaced on that. Because I had the same question about the financial auditor, because I thought we had the RFPs.
Yeah, we're doing it next month.
And I think that's a good idea. And then I think also because we have a schedule, maybe at that time we can clarify which partners we're going to be going out for RFPs for that given year, at least what we're going to hope to do. I think I just need a little bit of or maybe we all just need clarification. Approving this list doesn't mean we're approving some kind of a contract. It doesn't associate or it doesn't obligate us to any particular financial entity or activity. It's just simply saying that if we need this service, these are the go-to people. I guess I just need a little bit of clarifying of what are we actually doing when we approve this list? What does it mean?
I think it's both. As we talked about with the architect, we had talked, sometimes you just have a question or you need a quick something for them to work on. And so we wouldn't have, maybe we didn't plan on having anything. And so there isn't an approved contract. We don't pay a retainer. We don't do anything like that. We just have we're publicizing who our typical go-tos are. Maybe that's a better way to put it, because I know there's been question of, why do you continue, who approved this? Why do you continue to use this person? This list, at least in part, and as I look at the different items, some of these things are ongoing. The benefits consultant, the workers' comp advisor, our tax shelter, we are using those services, and that's the company we happen to be using. So, and then there's others where like the actuarial analyst, we won't do for 2 years. The auditor we do every year, but you get an engagement letter of which the board then approves. So it gives direction in that, should we have a random situation, we have people who the board has acknowledged that we can go to. We also have consultants on here that we say, yes, we need your service, we need it ongoing or quarterly or whatever it is, and then back to, but we will, what is our intent of going out to seek that service every 5 years? Right.
Thank you. That helps a lot. I think, we at some point we have gone through an approval process for all of these, right? When we decide to go with MMKR for a financial auditor, just like now we've gone out for RFPs, we're going through a process right now. That has happened in the past, and up until the time we were to maybe consider changing, that remains constant. So this isn't so much an approval list as it is, like you said, I like the word acknowledgement, so that we're aware, everyone's aware, these are the people we're using until something changes. Correct. This is a moment in time.
Correct. Yes. Except, I guess I disagree a little. I'm still concerned about the motion as it reads, and I guess I just am, because we make motions, we second motions, we vote on motions, and that goes into the record. Administration recommends appointing these consultants for the 2020 calendar year. So I look at this from a perspective, a governance perspective of this is a motion that we're making and getting a second on and then voting on. And to me, this reads, these are our consultants for the entire year. And I guess I need a little bit, I cannot support this motion right now as it's written, because I thought that we had, unless someone can help me feel better about it. I guess I thought we had taken on a new role as a board to seek RFPs for various consultants, and I feel like now we're just voting for them all. And what kind of recourse do we have when we say we would like to, this is a bad example, but Northern Air Corps and Johnson Controls. The board already voted them in for 2020. Wait a minute, we wanted to go out for RFPs. So that, I guess that's my
Well, and if
confusion.
there was a project that was over $175,000, we would have to go out for bids regardless of what this piece of paper says. Right?
Just to be clear, district service consultants do not require us to go out for, they don't require us to go out for proposals.
True. Okay.
So that is where, kind of back to the conversation that was had a few years ago is the vendors that provide service consulting, it's not a requirement.
Okay.
They kind of are until they aren't.
Yeah.
Where the challenge comes in, and to Director Palatier's point, is that in absence of a list, we're using people, and then there's question as to why are we using them. There's some hard and fast, we have entered into a contract. You did enter into an auditor contract or an engagement letter a year ago. You did enter into a financial consultant agreement. Well, and you went through the RFP process with that, but you did enter into an agreement when we refinanced the 2011 certificate. BWBR, the architect, you did enter into a contract. So those contracts were coming before you and you were approving them. To Director Palatier's point, yes, you're approving the list, and I don't know, then is it a verbiage change? It's like we're approving it for this unless it changes during the, you know what I mean? Like, is there some verbiage that you can use that says this is what's approved for 2020 unless replaced by? Is there something that
Right, so to that point, could we say administration recommends appointing these consultants for the 2020 calendar year or until such time the board approves a replacement? Does that cover
That's a good idea.
what it is?
Well, okay, sorry to interrupt. Thank you. And under what capacity would then it come to the board table to have a discussion about a replacement? What's the protocol for that then?
Well, I think that's the schedule, right? The schedule says this year we're doing this one and this one. And otherwise, I think it would come from administration. If it's one of the ones we don't put out RFPs, administration would come to us, or we would say, we want to look at this consultant.
I think a perfect example is tonight, you've chosen to have a different legal firm than you typically do to work on the bus facility. So that need came forward, we talked to you about it, you approved another firm. So it is, maybe the motion as stated suits the needs that you have, knowing that as a board, you can change that at any time. If you have a different need where you want someone else, you can always do that. And it keeps it in place so we at least have someone to reference towards until you get through those RFPs.
Yeah. And I think another second example would have been what happened with BWBR, because you knew you had the summer projects, not to confuse it. But what came out of that discussion was, what do we want to do after that? And that's why the amendment to the motion that the board supported. So again, I think what you're saying, and I like what Shelley's put on here, is that if the administration anticipates questions, issues, or maybe it's time, I don't know.
I have go ahead, Dr. Burns.
Oh, thanks. I wonder, can we, in the motion, indicate that we acknowledge? Because I think maybe that's what we're looking for, is that we are acknowledging this current list of consultants until such time that the board changes. And then my other questions, I would like clarity on this list that I haven't seen this. I probably have seen it before, but I didn't look at it closely enough. But what is our plan? Is there a plan for RFPs this year, 2020?
You're all looking at me, and I'm.
Well, what's on the schedule?
Well, we know for architect, right?
Yes.
That we know.
Yes.
Yes.
But that
And
begs the question, should there be a plan?
Well, and I will say, and this is where it's a little bit honestly challenging for me to answer, because I thought in this that we had some direction created, and that was provided to the board to say this is kind of what we're looking at, and these were our thoughts, and it seemed very agreeable at the time until the audit letter came forward, and it specifically stated on item number 6 of the question on why I specifically was doing the work of going out for an audit RFP. And so I kind of took a step back, to be honest with you, because I thought I had direction. I did have direction, and then I was called in a board document saying we don't even know why she's doing it. So I think we need to, the board, the committee, whomever needs to look at this list and give direction on what companies. I mean, we can do certain ones. There's only so many we can do in a particular year, just because of the sheer volume of work that goes into it. But are there ones that you want to review maybe sooner than later? We can get those, cycled in, start looking at 2021. If you look at the old document, you'd see we would have looked at environmental services, building control, and employee benefits. That's what would be teed up for next year. If the board's looking and saying, you know what, let's do it different, kind of the way you did with the architect. Maybe instead of in 1920, maybe instead of the actuarial analyst, we look at the architect. Great, we absolutely can do that. But to this conversation, I would strongly suggest at committee level or even at the board level as a whole that if this is the interest, a list is created that the district will do its darndest to try to comply with.
So can I just say, as chair of the finance group, we've met once. I met with Kristen prior, and we actually had sat down and started, kind of asking what she needs from us to get things moving and going forward. And I plan on continuing that type of a working relationship. This is the first that I've seen of it, literally. I may have gotten it, but I haven't seen it before. But I would. Did this get approved in the last committee? Is that what it was?
No, this was presented to the board, or at least given to the board. I see the date stamp on it is May 16th, and I want to say there was an email probably around May 23rd, or certainly talked about at the board level, and so.
So I don't have any problems, taking care of this and going through with this and running within committee, and then after we go through this list and just continue on with this list. I'm completely fine with that if everybody else is fine with that.
I think that's fine too, and I wonder if there's a difference between some of the partners on this list we actually have a working contract with that we went out for RFPs, and others are, well, these are the people we usually go to, right? So maybe we need to clarify that, because the ones that we have an actual contract with, we can acknowledge that we have a working relationship and a contract with this company, like, for example, legal counsel Kennedy and Gravid. We went out for RFPs for that last year. It's approved. We're going to stick with them for any number of years, according to the schedule. But some of the other ones are more like just our ongoing go-to people that we don't have a contract with, but that's who we use for advice and support.
So
right?
I think you hit it on the head. We need more clarification because we approved Kenny and Graven as your service, or that's an example, but we don't have a contract for them. That's their billable hours for whatever projects we have. So how about if we take Tina's offer to go through, we can color code it. Here's where we have a contract, here's where we not. I'm sure that she and Kristen and others can do that for you.
Yeah, so maybe what we need right now is just a little more detail, and then we can bring this back at a later date.
So move to table?
Move to table till we get more information.
I'll second
Do we have a second? We have a second? Any other questions or comments? All in favor of tabling this, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, item C. We have the change in elementary start and stop times for 2020 and 2021.
All right, so tonight what we'd like to talk about, people may or may not be aware of, is that we have one of our 7 elementary schools that operates 5 minutes different than all the other 6. And what we're proposing tonight is that we would have all of our elementary schools starting next fall be at the same time, which would adjust, in this case, all of it would adjust 6 elementary schools to match the start and end time of Stonebridge Elementary School. This has impacts for us as we look at scheduling our specialist schedules at the elementary level, because we have people that travel between the buildings. And while on the face it might not seem a big deal for 5 minutes, but it is when you're incorporating travel time and things like that into a staff member's schedule. In addition to that, in working with Kristen and the work they've done in transportation, there is a possibility of us having some decreased costs in transportation by shifting all the elementary schools to the same schedule. The one question that did come up was whether or not this would impact any of our schools that aren't ours in this, so the third tier of schools, and the transportation department checked on that, and there wasn't any conflicts that were found. So we think we've covered as much as we can with making the recommendation then that we make a change that all of our elementary schools, starting next fall, will run from 8:45 a.m. until 3:15 p.m.
All right, thank you very much. Can I get a motion to?
Go ahead, take the motion.
Can I get a motion to approve the change in the elementary stop times for next year?
So moved.
Tina Riley, second? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Director Burns, thank you very much. Any conversation or questions?
The question I have is, sometimes when we've gotten talking about makeup days for snow days, et cetera, and we add up total time, and I've always, I think in those discussions, it's always been, well, we're pretty good elementary-wise, no question. Secondary was always seems to have been where the issue. Taking 5 minutes for 6 schools would approximately 5 minutes every day, is that going to have an impact?
We're not changing the total time of the day.
You're
We're
just
just changing
moving
the
it.
start times.
Gotcha.
And I would actually say to that, and it depends on the routing goes on those days, 5 minutes between dropping off a high school student and getting to the elementary schools, hopefully on time, it might make the wait a little less.
Good.
I mean, and there's no guarantee to that, but it gives us a little 5 more minutes in there to not have to worry about covering.
Or another idea is we start the high school and 5 minutes later too. Shift all the schools.
Then you'd be shifting your third tier.
I'm just thinking about how early high school
Let's do elementary.
Stick to the middle.
Those buses are running really early. I always feel bad.
Yeah, we know.
Yes.
early.
Okay, Director Pearson.
Did you consider the specialists who moved from secondary to elementary? Will that work for them?
I don't know. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know
we
the
have some
degree
music
to which.
teachers that move from.
1 or 2.
Does that, it still works with their schedule?
That shouldn't make a change, because we would have, like I said, the only building that isn't on this isn't on the same schedule right now is Stonebridge. So there shouldn't be anything between that gets
I'm going the other way though.
changed, because if I have this correct in my head, the scheduling between the secondary and the elementary schools is done based on when they offer the courses at the secondary. And so it's a different way of figuring out the travel time than elementary to elementary.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep, so it's easier for elementary to elementary, but it shouldn't be a problem from secondary. to
Right,
elementary.
because you might have for example, you might have a second period band at Stillwater Middle that band teacher is shared with one of the elementary schools. And that's a different problem or scenario that the 2 principals then have to work out with the elementary scheduling itself.
Okay.
Okay, any further questions or comments? All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the change in the schedule of the start and stop times for our elementary schools for next year. All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, it is unanimous. All right, at our last meeting, we opted not to have the chair report and the working group reports. I think because we skipped it last time, I'd really like to take it and actually give us a chance to say some things, but let's try to keep it really brief so we can wrap this up. My board chair report, let's see, I will just say two things. The 916, the Intermediate District 916 Foundation Gala is coming up on February 21st, and everyone is welcome to come. It should be a fun time. You can look on their website for tickets. And something interesting that I wanted to draw attention to people, there's something called Cambia Hills, which is an inpatient pediatric mental health facility, is going to be opening in March. And it is going to be a much needed, very well, we just really need it. And a lot of people are very excited about this coming. And so there will be an open house to see the facility if you're interested on March 25th. If anyone is interested in learning more, just let me know. And I just wanted to point out, because I think this is kind of exciting, the Governor, Tim Walz, has proclaimed this month as Career and Technical Education Month. So let's focus on that a little bit this month. All right, that's all I have. You want to go?
Community, are you doing working groups or no?
Well, board, okay.
Working groups, then board.
Okay, sorry, I get this confused. All right, working groups, community engagement.
Have not met yet.
Not here, okay, we haven't had a meeting. All right, finance and operations.
Finance and ops, that would be me. We met on January 30th, I think it was. Discussed the auditor RFPs, and they are in, and there are 2 copies, and Sherry has librarian duty with them, and you are allowed to check them out if you can't look at them on the spot. But please be diligent upon your review so other board members have the opportunity to view them also. I do have a copy, so there's only one there right now. The next finance working group will be dedicated specifically to the RFPs to score and rank for the auditor. We talked about the transportation proposals. Looks like there's going to be an anticipated increase in rates, and Kristen is proceeding with negotiations, and we had a budget conversation, and future meetings have been scheduled. That's it.
Awesome, thank you very much. Legislative?
Legislative, couple quick ones. 2 brand new members. Welcome to Shelley and to Mark. And I gave each of them, as well as the present members, Denise and myself, a copy of 7 upcoming events. The first is tomorrow morning, and AMSD is hosting a 2020 legislative session preview at Quora Education Center. It's a half an hour later start than most of their meetings are, and it goes a half an hour later. Anybody's welcome. Sherry has posted this, so if anybody wants to drop in, they do have a continental breakfast to begin with, and then they'll have a panel of legislators who will speak and take questions. Anybody else who wants a copy of that list, just let me know, or anybody in the public who wants a copy of the list for the legislative working group, let me know, and I'll be glad to send you a copy of that. And I think I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Policy?
Policy group, we're going to be meeting on Monday, February 10th, to discuss some of the policy questions that have arisen recently, including Policy 520 and the distribution of paper flyers, some other items as well. But our first meeting of this new year will be this coming Monday.
Great, thank you. Board member reports. I think I already kind of gave mine, so I'll let you start down here.
This is a little old, but alas, I'm gonna read it. I was recently invited to the grand opening ribbon cutting ceremony for the new Valley Library in Afton. This event was attended by over 300 community members, was an amazing collaboration between the Lower St. Croix Valley Library Board, the county, city leadership, and the community at large. They are very excited about this. They want to create new partnerships with the district. And we can talk, that'll come up later, but I just wanted to give a little shout out to a woman named Sarah Meyer she lives in Afton. This woman has spent countless hours on this project, And I just, as I was speaking at the ribbon cutting, I could not help but be struck by the magnitude of this accomplishment. As I told the group, change starts with just one individual, with one idea, who never gives up. And I just, Ms. Meyer, you should not be commended enough for being that person. And I hope those words can spread to others in the community. It just takes one idea and someone who doesn't give up. Attended the MSBA conference. I was able to present a little bit with Superintendent Pontrelli as well as Bob on our systems, and people in the room can't get over the many things we have going on here, and it was just, I was so proud to be there in that moment, so thank you so much. Just a quick shout out to the PTA moms. Brookview PTA meeting as part of my liaison. It was very nice to see such strong parent leadership at the school. Special thanks to these parents for letting me attend and learn about the many great things going on. Lake Elmo PTA. This goes back to October, but I'm not going to let it go. I have to bring it up. I recently learned that one of our local dads is a wrestling coach at the U of M. Along with local servants such as the board, he brought in wrestlers to read to the students at Lake Elmo Elementary. I had the opportunity to meet one of the U of M wrestling students, and he was so excited to be there reading to the kids. He was just like, this is the best thing I've done in ages. So I just wanted to, this is another example of our families working together, and I hope those principals are proud and take care of those PTA moms, because they sure do a lot of work. And I just wanted to end it with respect, a respectful comment, given we just passed Martin Luther King Day. I just wanted to end this. I feel like we're in tough times right now, locally, regionally, nationally, and I was struck by this quote, so I'm going to say it. I think it's quite applicable today. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great quote. Thank you very much. Director Pearson?
I don't have anything tonight.
Okay. Director Potacek?
Yes, Friday, January 24th, Sarah, myself, and Tina attended a C membership meeting, and two things happened that were very, very good. They're online, so if you want to go see. There was a woman by the name of Lori Hillman, who's a PhD, head of the reading program or the reading center at the University of Minnesota. Great presentation. We were thoroughly impressed and doing wonderful things. I've already let Rachel and others know they could go online and see that presentation. The other significant part, or the second portion of the meeting, we had Senator Carla Nelson, a Republican out of Rochester, and we also, and she's the head of the combined Senate E12 Finance and Policy Committee. And then we also had her counterpart in the House, Representative Cheryl Yakim, who is a DFLer out of Hopkins, and she is chair of the House Education Policy Committee and a member of the House Education Finance Committee. And we listened to them present for a while. Again, part of that legislative background.
Can I just add one more thing about that?
Please do.
What was astounding about that is we heard this incredible presentation about the reading literacy and, how do we approach literacy. And then when the two representative and senator were speaking, they were talking about how there is some legislation happening that will provide some additional support in reading and literacy to try to look at boosting our reading scores, which I thought was interesting.
And hopefully,
very excited about it.
Middle school interventionists.
Yes, yes, yes.
She said the Education Committee is laser focused on literacy right now.
That's right.
Are you done?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll piggyback off, or I'll just copy what you said and you said. And then tomorrow morning, I'm actually meeting with Principal Gordy, and we're going to discuss Lake Elmo Elementary. I would like to express my thanks to him, as he has reached out and has been very welcoming, him and Rhonda both. And so he's helped me become more informed as a board member, and I'm thankful that we have the opportunity for liaisons again, because I think the board has missed out on such a great opportunity to learn about the individual buildings, and I have learned so much just within the last week and a half, 2 weeks. So thank you.
Awesome. Dr. Burns?
Thanks. Just quickly, last week on January 29th, I attended the Change the Game conference, which was put on by Special Olympics Minnesota. And they're working to promote inclusion in schools. And one way that they're doing this is through the Unified Champion Schools, of which Stillwater Area High School is one of them. The way that they promote this inclusion is through inclusive sports. Of course, this group would be the Special Olympics, that would be part of their drive, but also inclusive youth leadership and whole school engagement. The Stillwater has been part of this program for a couple of years now, I believe. We've started as part of our inclusive youth leadership and whole school engagement. I think Director Pelletier had mentioned this a few meetings ago, called the Trust Club, in which there are peer groups going to work with our special education students one-on-one, and it's been a fantastic experience both ways. So that's something that is happening at the high school. I think there's some interest in maybe expanding that to our middle schools, having the same model being promoted through our middle schools. And if any board member is interested, Paula Harrison would be a good contact person to discuss and reach out to, because it's some really interesting and fantastic work that they're doing.
Thank you very much. All right, and with that, I would like to make a motion that I would like to move that we go into closed session pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05, Subdivision 3B, for an attorney-client privilege conversation regarding litigation options to address EN Properties, LLC's failure to install water and sewer lines for the bus terminal site and the City of Lake Elmo's refusal to amend the site's CUP pending installation of the water and sewer lines.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. You're adjourned.
All right, Jennifer.